Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Neutral Lounge, a podcast about video games and computer technology. I'm your host Joel, and with me is my co-host Alex and our guest Jay. Together we make up the Neutral Lounge. In this episode we talk about Destiny. Is there a Destiny? Mobile gaming, why it works and why it doesn't. Intel Arc Alderlake, Architecture Day, Intel comes out swinging. AMD Leaks and 3D cache. Thank you Gigabyte. And Gamescom news. Without further ado, let's talk tech. Al, how you been going, mate? And you brought your OnePlus with you today. Jay. Welcome, Jay.
Welcome, Jay. I think it was a good topic to have, especially with Destiny and timing-wise. I think it is a good one. Yeah, I've been okay. Just been very busy with work and enjoying a little bit of our English summer whilst it's still kind of here.
It's not for the lost.
Yeah, the heat hasn't really returned yet. But,
summer's over quite soon.
Yeah, still catch it with friends and family. That's my side of things. How about yourself, Joe?
Much the same, work the last month is, had a turn for the worst. It just got super busy. But we've come out the other end. It's, the pandemic stuff, obviously, it's better. I'm getting out.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit more sane than I have done in a while. Trying to book a holiday, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to get back to normality, really. I mean, I've actually got a couple of days back in the office next week.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting back to that. So I mean, sure, it's going to be good for my kind of mental health. It's going to be good for my family's mental health not to have me around also.
Is that mandated? Is that Joe, or is that you?
It's a little bit mandated.
Yeah, okay.
It's a little bit mandated. It's been almost. Guys, it's been almost kind of a year and a half to 2 years. It's a long time, isn't it? It's a long time.
It is indeed.
I've been working on and off from home for the last 3-4 years, so the lockdown was quite normal for me. But I guess the difference is everybody else was home as well. Before, when I was at home, I had my own space.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's when it's all said and done, a change in dynamic like this. Especially when there's no kind of let up, you're kind of on top of it. Everybody around you. Look, no doom and gloom. Things are kind of improving. I mean, Jay, how about you? I mean, is it much the same?
Yeah. So, well, firstly, thanks for inviting me. I've been pestering Al to let me join the podcast.
Have you really? I had no idea.
But subtly.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then out of the blue, he said we'd like to come on and talk about Destiny.
Al doesn't really do subtle.
He doesn't what? Sorry.
He doesn't do subtle.
Yeah. Yeah. So more so because of lockdown, and I think we spoke about it before we actually started. Is that I've been breaking at the seams to talk about games to people.
Sure.
Especially with being at home. And I've been good. I am just quite looking forward to, as we were speaking about earlier, new generation, lots of gaming news, things are starting to move, because it's been a bit slow, hasn't it, in the last year. Things have been delayed, hearing excuses of why things are being delayed, and things have been coming out half finished, and I don't know, and obviously, as I mentioned before, I've got the new Xbox, and I've got the new PlayStation. I'm just excited to talk about games, particularly the next hour or so, or however long we're going to talk on this podcast for. So yeah, I'm good, thanks.
And with all that said, I think we should just move on to the next topic, chaps. Or the first topic, I should say. So guys, I think the next topic we want to talk about is really Destiny. Destiny the game, obviously. Now, I personally have not played Destiny for many a month, potentially many a year. If memory serves me correctly. All I want to know is, has Destiny changed? Does Destiny have a future? Is Destiny how I remember it? Because I used to love Destiny 1. I basically kind of played that, I think, halfway into its life cycle. Then I kind of start tailing
Yeah.
off. Destiny 2 came out, finished the campaign, maybe a couple of the campaigns, can't remember now. And then I lost interest. You know, I found basically a bit more what I wanted in something like Warframe, for instance. Yeah, so I put aside Destiny and said, okay, we're not gonna Destiny anymore. We're gonna Warframe now. But I kind of want to. I just want to know what kind of state is that game in at the moment. Jay, I mean, you're probably the only Destiny fan on this on this podcast. So, go on, where do you start?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people listening probably don't know, but I'm a Destiny addict. It's probably... I've played since beta, right? And so the game's been out, what, 7 years, maybe? Close to. And I've pretty much played every expansion, done every single raid, done pretty much all the content. And in that period, I've gone through periods of kind of almost like a love-hate relationship of kind of playing it intensely, as in it's the only game, for about 5 years, and then getting a little bit miffed by Bungie not delivering, and there's been all sorts of reasons with like Activision and them trying things that have failed and etc etc. But I've kind of been on and off, and more recently maybe last year and a half, I've been part of a weekly raid group where we raid every Sunday. Even if there's no new content, the raids we just keep doing, right? And that's been quite fun. But I would say the last 2 months, 3 months, I've not played at all. I've completely deleted it. I actually thought, and it's probably the third time I've tried to walk away, and I keep coming back. So that tells you my relationship with Destiny. But just coming back to your question, what you're asking is being asked by so many people, right? Players of Destiny, is it dead, is it dying? To gaming sites, to even other publishers, right? Who have gone through waves of trying to replicate what Destiny does and failing, and then labelling it as, Destiny's going to die, etc., etc. And it's not going to die, right? On a number of reasons, right? It's got a really stable, growing user base now. Most of them are probably hardcore players, but it's built in a number of kind of like free-to-play options, right? As being one thing. It's firing on all cylinders in terms of story and narrative now. It's actually moving closer to where Halo was. I know it's not quite there, but in the last 2 years, and there are problems with the game, right? Some of the seasonal models, etc. But narrative-wise, it really is firing on all cylinders, right? And also, they, in the last year, and going forwards, they've announced the next 3 expansions. And recently, as part of the Witch Queen, they've announced the next one, because the Witch Queen's coming out, right? And they've also said, after the next 3 expansions, so there's 4 now, including Witch Queen, that will be the end of the saga. And then there's going to be another saga, which is going to carry on. And then you've probably also heard of rumours of them having kind of Destiny spin-offs, right, in the same world but not called Destiny. Bungie are too invested, they're too good of a studio, right, and they've got problems, right. The answer to your question, it's not going to die. But it's got a lot of problems which we can go into, right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where you guys kind of sit, kind of being, but more so yourself, Joe, I think Alex has kind of dabbled a little bit with Destiny and kind of bounced off because he's had other games that probably suit his needs. But where are you at, Joe, then? Because you kind of lived and breathed Destiny. It was the only game in your probably a console for a while, right? And didn't play anything else, like I've done for a long period.
That did happen for a long while. Like, kind of similar for Owl as well. I mean, one of the reasons that I enjoyed Destiny was just the gunplay. It was just the gunplay that was very familiar to Halo. Obviously, when you kind of play with your mates, it's like a social event, isn't it? And at that time, you kind of always had, obviously, you have the draw of the raids, you have the draw of the strikes, you have the, what I call it, it's the want of getting that one weapon at the time. Yeah. Would it be the Galahorn at the time, or something else? The chase. Yeah. the chase, right? I mean, I remember that there was this one assault rifle I never ever got, and I think, Al, do you remember Rob had it?
Yeah.
I never ever got it, and I used to, like I used to kind of want that rifle, and I thought, but the longer it went on, that whole that whole the whole chase, for those weapons kind of evaporated. I remember the last time I kind of sunk any kind of hours into it. What was that kind of arena challenge mode they had?
Oh,
Was it Gambit? Was it
No.
No,
Gambit?
this
Or...
I think it was way before that, wasn't it? It's
Oh, it was a 3-player activity kind of thing.
yeah,
Was it?
yeah,
Yeah,
free
yeah.
player, small arenas.
Oh, Prison of Elders?
Yeah,
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 it's
Prison of
Prison
Elders.
of Elders. Yeah.
Yeah, Prison Elders. I mean,
yeah.
that was actually the
So-
last time I really sunk any sort of kind of. I mean, when I mean time, I mean like played through the night, hours and hours. Yeah. And then after that, it just started to tail off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just like Destiny started to change. Yeah, and I guess they were trying to kind of reboot the thing almost, not quite reboot it, but they were they were trying to basically move on to the next chapter of Destiny. So there going to be some growing
Yeah.
pains. I understand that.
Yeah. So I think so D1 there was nothing like it at the time, right? And it's the first game I've actually, off the back of, had an actual community of friends that I play with regularly, right? And actually started speaking on a mic on a game. Before I'd never really bothered. I used to play Call of Duty,
Yeah,
whatever. And then when D2 came around, they tried to, like you said, try to reinvent it, flopped, and then they took them a couple of years to kind of move away from being catered towards the mass market to moving back to being more RPG, and they're in a really good place now. They've got lots of mods, they've got the right balance of unique weapons, and no other game comes close to the gunplay. And I think some of the other studios that actually used to work with Bungie, like there's one called High Moon Studios that's working now with Call of Duty. You can actually see in Call of Duty, like the micro animations on the guns that make it feel, and the weight that make it feel more real, which Destiny and Bungie have nailed, right? They're catching up. That gap is getting smaller, but still, Bungie have got a formula that Destiny that works. Their main problem they've got now is creating enough content, and if they hire lots of people then consume it at a faster rate, and then still complain about the same thing. And I think what they've done now is they've kind of re-educated the audience of where are you going to produce these big expansions, and you're going to have these small season updates, and we're not going to burn ourselves out because you're going to eat up all of it, right? And in that model, are they creating enough engaging new environments, fun content to keep people going? I think that's what the main challenge is. But they showed the Witch Queen, and I was like, first of all, I thought, well, I was really looking for something new and innovative coming in there, but I saw the new guns, the new armour, and I reinstalled Destiny again. I actually removed myself from my raid groups for a few months. With Mike, I'm back on there again. I'm playing tomorrow. And to be honest, I do miss it, right? And I've actually lowered my expectations now with the game as well.
Interesting that.
And which suits me, right? I'm hearing enough from this Witch Queen, and we can probably talk a bit
Yeah,
more.
I liked it. I mean, I actually, there's one thing I cannot fault with Destiny. It's gunplay. Yeah, gunplay.
And the raids.
Yeah, the raids, but when as the core mechanics, right? The thing that at its core that Destiny is, it is a good FPS. Gunplay is supreme in that thing, no doubt about it.
And the supers. You can keep firing a Nova Bomb or one of the other supers, other characters, and they've got loads of them, and it feels
Empowering. Yeah, it's empowering.
It doesn't. I would say fresh, but the animations are so good. And now that I've got a PS5 and I'm running it at 60 FPS, 4K. It feels like a new game, and you can even run the multiplayer at 120. It is a beautiful looking game, and you can see they've invested in the game engine in the last couple of years. It's here to stay. Yeah, it's like someone described it. It's in a World of Warcraft state now. It's not going away. It's just they've said to themselves they're committing to Bungie's going to move to a 2-3 game studio. At the moment, it's only one, this will be their World of Warcraft. They'll carry on for another 10 years.
So I've got a question, Jay, on this one. So obviously, Destiny's model previously was, the game in its original form, full price, expansions, certain amount, almost full price games, kind of on top of it. They changed to the free to play model. And have you spent anything on their additional, whether it's battle passes or any of the sort of premium currency that they have? Have you actually spent anything on it?
No, only in D1 when they first had their
silver,
store, which was called the Eververse store. Yeah, I bought some silver there, like £30 worth, and I never used it. And then it got lost when I went to D2, but since then I haven't, right? But when they first came out with D2, where they really elevated the microtransactions, it was in a bad state. People complained about it, but they've got a good balance now where. And I'll come back to your question about their model because they're in a really weird place, right? But in terms of microtransactions, they will come out with free loot for free-to-play players. Plus, if you buy the season pass, there's an exotic and some other loot there as well, behind a paywall. The really sexy stuff in the microtransaction Eververse store, which looks the guns and the ornaments for the guns and stuff. That's the best stuff is there. You have to buy, but what they have done now is every week you can buy with in-game currency you earn by playing, and they are dropping more of the good stuff in there. Right. So if you've played the game for a whole season, you will get most of the new-looking stuff which you initially have to pay. Before it was completely locked behind. Yeah. So all the best stuff was, and I was really pissed off. But paywalled, right? But this is a good balance, right? Because it keeps you coming to seeing what's on the Eververse store, which I can buy with in-game currency versus real currency, and the good stuff comes on there. So they've got a good balance. But just coming back to the model, right? And I heard this elsewhere. It's the only game that has, or one of the only main ones that has a big expansion every year. Right, which you pay for, which is like £30-40. Then you pay £10 for a seasonal pass every 3 months, but you can get that at a bit of a discount if you pay extra with the expansion pass, so maybe for 50 or 60 a year. Then they have microtransactions in the game as well as free to play. It's kind of like everything.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Obviously you got the base game free to play now, which is good because that's what they didn't do before was. Back in even D1, they were still almost charging full price for the original until they got really late into the various expansions.
In these last 7 years, it's almost felt like an ongoing MVP of a game. Right? Like they're testing business models, game modes. I mean, the raids are stuck, the strikes are stuck, but there's been so many 3-player activities such as the Prison of Elders that they've messed around with all the formulas. Like they're trying everything before they're going to release another Final Destiny that's going to persist.
But I do think in any kind of anything that got a long lifespan, online service is going to be an MVP, whether they call it that or not.
And Joe, the weapon was it Vision of Confluence?
A Vision of Confluence.
Right.
God, I never get that weapon. It was so frustrating.
So you guys can, because they re-released that and updated it this year.
Is it any good?
With those weapons, well, I only got some of the weapons. I haven't got the Vision of Confluence actually yet, but they reworked the original raid, Volta Blast raid, and released it this year. So you can come back and play if you want.
there is that, but I've got to say, I mean, you can't really call Destiny really a free-to-play, can you? I mean,
so what? Okay, so what they've done is, I think if they go back, it's free to play everything that's 2 years old and beyond before that, and it's free to play for PvP, and so you basically get the expansions that are more than 2 years old, all free, which is a lot of content.
That's still
it's
pretty
a hell
good.
of a lot. To be honest, actually, they could get away with charging for that, but they give that free. So once you start playing as a free-to-play player, there's so much stuff you get sucked in, and then they know that as well, right? So
I wouldn't mind going back in to just see what that was like because I'm perpetually going to be comparing it to Warframe. which is the most fair free-to-play game I've ever kind of encountered. You know, they keep telling how it's kind of almost overwhelming what they give you. That's seemingly
it's crazy.
free.
Yeah, it's crazy
but
how much
yet,
content's in there.
Yeah, they still make money out of that thing.
They from what I've seen, they've never had a content problem, have they? They've been able to produce ridiculous amount of content with a relatively small studio compared to Bungie. I think Bungie has spent a lot. This is my reading between the lines. They've had a good sized studio, and they flopped on the Destiny 2, Destiny original release. Had all sorts of problems because they pulled all the story out and they ripped out loads of content. Then they've been in this ongoing battle with trying to do what Activision say. Then they tried to reboot the game, had problems. Then they went away from Activision and they got themselves in the back path. And it almost feels like they've spent so much energy on being pulled in different directions and trying to just keep the train on the rails. And it seems a lot of that has all gone. And they're an independent studio and publisher. And I'm quite excited now to see what other games they're going to come out with. And Destiny's in a good place. And coming back to what you say, I think they've got a good rhythm where I can selfishly can play an expansion every year, grind it up really hard for 2-3 months, and then get my fill up throughout the year, but not feel like I'm missing out and play other games in between. And that's a good balance for me.
Yeah. No, that I understand. I mean, you know, I do hope they basically find, and I'm sure they are finding their way. You know, I'm pretty sure because I looked up their concurrent players, peaks and the troughs. You know, and that, you know, at their peaks they're hundreds of thousands. They're doing quite well. But you know, you kind of want Destiny to be everything that it could be, if you know what I mean. You know, it's like you said, the narrative, the gunplay. If you're a live service game, you're all about that new content. You're all about that's everything. And you know, I'm kind of making this analogy with Warframe, and I'm a total scratch record, right? But with Warframe, sometimes I just think the level of content they give you is almost overwhelming. You can't even if you go away from that game, right? You just can't. You know, it doesn't feel you can catch up. Sometimes I'm sure some hardcore Warframe players will kind of absolutely disagree, right? But that's how it feels to me. And you know, I'm not saying that Destiny should be that, but it should be closer to that.
There needs to be a better cycle, but that was always the problem with Destiny 1, right?
Yeah, how we left it, basically,
Yeah, the engine wasn't up to scratch, but I know obviously with Destiny 2, they had to redo a lot of development, right? That was part of the reasons why it was so shaky on day one, that because they had to restart and redo a lot of the stuff. They probably reused the same game engine as number one. so
when they brought it to PC, they brought another game studio. I think it might have even been High Moon Studios that works with Call of Duty now, or it might be another one. But as they ported it to PC, they also moved to an enhanced version of their current game engine, wherever it is. And it runs so well now. It's so buttery smooth. Menus loading into, it used to take ages loading to planets on the original PS4. All of that stuff is gone. With this Witch Queen thing going forwards, right? Actually, so I'll mention something about content, right? They've had no new PvP maps for the last 2 years, which I think is a bit of a disgrace.
Really?
It's frustrating. No, they have no PvP has had no love despite multiple promises, and I think that's because they're building another multiplayer game on the side. That's definitely one of their other two games they're doing, right? But they've now said they're going to commit next year to having more regular. There's been lots of structural people. The people that there's a guy, I forgot his name now, Luke Smith, who basically saved D1 by creating the Vault of Glass, and him and his crew, they've all moved up the hierarchy to the point where they were setting the vision for Destiny and moved on to new franchises. I think they're coming out with deals with Netflix, and there's movies and TV series that are coming, and more magazines, right? They are. I think they're going to make it like a Star Wars world, and you guys haven't played it for a while. It really has that kind of promise. There's so much potential for Destiny. Now that's been one of my frustrations, right? I remember playing D1. I was thinking, they're going to have flying aeroplanes going to space and planets and all this stuff, but none of that materialised, right? But I think they've got a nice core gameplay, keep it going, and reinvent other, so there are other games, because I just love Bungie basically.
Yeah, no, not knocking Bungie
Yeah.
whatsoever, because when it's all said and done, they gave us Halo, and they gave us
Yeah.
D1 when, for my money, D1 was great. Yeah, and I'm a bit lukewarm on D2. Who knows? Given enough time, that could also be great. Yeah. To be fair, I need to get back into it to say if it's great or not great. But the way I left it was just like, oh, this ain't great. That's my last word.
I
This
think
could be great, but
if
it's
you-
not great.
If you do the free to play,
Yeah.
you'll effectively get the Forsaken DLC. I think you'll find that's pretty good. The only thing is, there's been so much story. The entry point for someone new and catching up the story is
Massive, probably.
is difficult. But the game modes and mechanics from then and all the other stuff, it's worth you guys giving it a go. But
we did
once you
dabble.
start, you can't stop. That's the problem. It's like,
We
it's
did-
like Pringles.
Yeah.
We did dabble with D2. when it went free to play, I think a whole bunch of us went back for a bit. I
Yeah,
gave
yeah,
up quite
that's true.
quickly when it started invading my screen with microtransactions. I was like, I'm not having any more of that. Thank you.
No, it's all gone now, and like they've gone RPG. They've got artifacts with different mods every season.
That sounds a little bit more like my cup of tea.
Okay.
They are adding new perks to the sandbox every 3 months that actually materially add difference. Right, you've got each body armor set, helmets and legs have like 5 perk slots. There's you can do quite a lot of different builds. It really has. If you've not played it since that, it's
just
in a completely
want
different
some
place.
complexity.
Oh no,
That's all I
it's
want.
got loads. It's got loads.
Yeah.
You'll find it overwhelming when you
That's
come
all
back.
I wanted to know, right? Because basically, Warframe, I mean, not super complex, but complex, right? Even Diablo, right? Lots of depth. That's all I ever wanted for Destiny, you know?
Yeah, no,
Please
it's-
don't dumb this down for me. Please don't do that.
they stripped it back and brought it all back in a good way, and the PvP maps is a problem for me, and the game modes, because they haven't touched that, but they're saying they're going to do that.
I
We'll see.
find that quite strange
On
for
the
2 years, though. I mean, like you said, they're moving to new franchises, but it's such a weird thing to do, because I thought there was a big PvP
PvP was
community.
one of the key bits of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's still good. I think they tried to make it a competitive mode, and they gave up on it because the bombastic kind of fun nature of explosions and that's what PvP is. It's not competitive mode, and they've left it like that. And that's fine. On the PvE front, if you've been playing like I have, there's not enough strikes and game modes.
Jay, don't say that. Don't say they're not enough strikes.
No. There's no. For me, who's been playing all the time, there's not enough new ones. For you, if you came back and you play it, it's fine. They need to beef that up a little bit. But they've also said, I mean, they've had some amazing raids, new ones, amazing, and they've got things like mini versions of dungeons, and they've had other kind of more complex, repeatable 3-player missions, and some of that are amazing. Like there's one that was out recently. I forgot what it was. It's called Presage. It's almost like boarding a ship with alien style, right? It almost felt like a mini raid, but like a smaller version. But they've got what they've said going forwards from December. Every 3 months there will be a new raid or reprise raid or a new dungeon, right? And that's when you do the kind of 6-player activities, which I can carry on a weekend with my friends. That's enough. Maybe that with a sprinkling of some more PvP maps, that'll keep me going for forever, basically. And I think that's what most hardcore players really come back for that stuff, right?
That's very true.
The raids are just...
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt
yeah.
about the Destiny raids. So, I think personally amongst the best. I will say, like, this expansion, what's it gonna give the community though? Because like I did see the cinematic, and I thought to myself, well, it looks kind of interesting, but what is it gonna actually give give the players? Because is it not just campaign, or is it a bit more than that?
So it's basically going to give. It's mostly on the PvE side, right? So it's going to give a new planet, and they gave a new planet last year. I'm assuming it'll be they haven't actually said the exact amounts of strikes and exact amount of content. They'll probably do that later in the year. But we'll have some more strikes. It will have more loot, and they're introducing a new weapon type. But since you last played, there's been a few. I mean, were bows part of when you? Were bows when you were playing?
No. I don't think they were. But I mean, I did follow it when they introduced it.
Yeah. So they're adding a new weapon type, which is a kind of a. I don't know what they actually call it now. I've got it open here. It's a melee weapon that you can also fire, and it's a bit like a staff. Is that they say? Like a stick type thing. They're adding that. They're adding So what they actually originally committed to is every big DLC every year they were going to add a new subclass. So they added stasis last year. So you had Solar, Void, and Arc, and they added stasis last year. And they originally committed to one new dark subclass with each one of these expansions. There were 3. No, there was 4. Because they said they couldn't fit it in. Because they had a lot of problems with stasis last year, they've actually said they're delaying the dark subclass, but what they are doing is reworking all 3 of the original subclasses every 3 months next year, which is a big thing. So Stasis added which is one of the subclasses last year, made it more customizable versus having fixed trees, right? And they're going to make the original subclasses more customizable, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add it with the customization you get across the different armor types, plus the artifact that has loads of mods, plus the guns, plus the different types of gun. Even like the exotic. Each exotic has unique perks and unique characteristics. Like if you get a pistol in Call of Duty, it's just a pistol with a different skin. Maybe it might fire a bit fast, but they have lots of different quirks and with each gun, which no other game has, right? So yeah, but to come back to your question, it's mostly that. They're also Destiny hasn't had many new enemies types, right? Since you last played, there's been the Scorn, and then they've iterated within the sub.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Enemy types, but yeah, that there's
they've not introduced new factions, is what I would say.
Yeah, that they did with the Scorn, which I think that there's been new since you last played. There might be one other, which I can't remember. Were the Taken there when you played?
I think
they were. Yeah,
I think they were.
Yeah, Taken. Okay, so Scorn was afterwards, but they've actually added a few enemy types within each of the families, and then one of the big things they've got is they're iterating on the what's the main enemy type again? Sorry, I've got a bit of a blank here. What are they called?
The Cabal.
Not the Cabal. The
Forsaken.
No. The enemy type. I've just had a bit of a. Who was it in the Taken Queen? What was the enemy type in there? It'll come back to me. But they basically one of the existing enemy types. They've basically made Guardians within one of the enemy types that have the same powers as Guardians and a Ghost.
That's it. That's when I kind of saw the trailer. I noticed that you had the Ghosts, and they basically were just again I've forgotten the kind of enemy types here as well. But they had these ghosts, and they were just kind of bringing back to life some of. We've got to find the name of the enemy.
Oh, it's the Hive.
Yeah, the Hive.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
The Hive. Yeah.
You basically had Hive ghosts, and the Hive ghosts were bringing back to life Hive. At the end of that kind of cinematic trailer, I noticed that 3 Hives were just basically dashing forward, or jumping forward. They changed colour to represent some of these. These abilities, these subclasses that usually see for the main player. So that was quite interesting.
That's right, yeah. And that new weapon type was called called a glaive. So it's kind of like a sword that fires a projectile, but it's a first person weapon where most of the swords are third person in Destiny. Yeah. They've added that, which is quite a big new thing. And I think the rest of they're just basically kept under wraps. I think they'll have another showcase in a few months' time, and then I'm sure they'll have another showcase before it releases. But Destiny within their season passes, they throw in some big surprises as well, and there've been some really, some of the reprised weapons that have come back, like the Thorn, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. They've brought them back with missions and stories. There's so much. The lore is so deep in Destiny, right? And the lore telling in the game with story and narrative of people speaking and the steps. Most people probably, unfortunately, won't get a chance to experience that because you have to play it enough. But there is a lot of depth in there, and if you. Reality is, you guys are not going to have the chance to go back and play it. But for a hardcore Destiny player, we're not just all stupidly just playing the game. It's got hooks on so many sides of it.
I've got to sample this for at least 24 hours to see if this is any of this is true. Jay, any of this is true. I do like this. I do like what you're saying. I mean, like it does sound it's basically come on a level. If you know what I mean, it's like, because obviously when I and Al left it wasn't in the greatest state. It was almost in a transition period where they were just, like you said, they were stripping it back so they could build it up again.
It was literally the point at which it went free to play. We had, we'll give it a shot, give it a try. Didn't really catch us, I think, for the longer kind of streak on it, but it's probably worth a revisit at Christmas, maybe just to
that's
dabble,
not bad.
have a look.
Bit of Christmas Destiny.
Yeah, but Jay, question for you: have you pre-ordered?
No, I haven't actually, because I'll be honest, right? I hadn't played, and I was trying to walk away, free myself, and then I saw the showcase, and it was really slick, and I pretended to myself like I didn't like it, and I wasn't going back. The more I read up on it, I got sucked back in, and I'm going to end up pre-ordering because I'm going to play the raids next year. And it's a much better package to buy it now because they've also got the Bungie's 30th anniversary towards Christmas time, where they're adding another dungeon in that space and loads of ornaments. If you buy that as part of the deluxe package now, you get that content. I will pre-order it basically. I've someone I know in my family who's much older than us said, he spent the whole of his life pretending he didn't like stuff. Like he was talking about cars and wearing flowery shirts, and then he realised he got to an age when he thought he's done very well for himself, and thought, why am I pretending to be something that I'm not, right, just for the sake of it? And he's just gone on a splurge, and that's where I'm at with Destiny, right? It's a love-hate thing. When I love it so much, and when I hate it, I really hate it. It grinds me, and I just need to walk away and play the game.
That's everything in life, though, right? You can hate, the things that you love the most. You hate them all and you love them all. That's the reality.
Yeah. Exactly. And if I stop playing, you guys would invite me back to this podcast, and because I have nothing else to add. So you guys know everything else.
Yeah, you're done. Jay, you're done. Guys, with that said, I think it really is time to kind of move away from Destiny. I think we've agreed Destiny has a destiny, and now it's time to move on to the next topic. So guys, I think the next topic we want to talk about is mobile gaming. And I'm really talking from the perspective of like mobile phones and the like, not your Switches or the new Steam Deck that's coming out or PSV and PSP. And really, I know there's a big kind of following with kind of mobile phone games, but I just kind of really want to understand. I mean, because how does this work? How can it be working? How can it be making so much money out of it? Yeah, and is really this type of mobile gaming? Is it for us? As core gamers. That's the question.
It's a really interesting one, right, Joe? Like this one. I mean, I put the topic in, and again, those that have been listening to the podcast, I've been playing Genshin Impact, which has a mobile angle to it. You can play it as a mobile game, although I play it on the PC. The other one that I've been playing is Punishing Grey Raven, which is actually mobile. There's no PC client, PC install. And both of those have got me hooked. I'm playing good amounts of time, on those particular games, and they're subtly different. But I think that is the thing with mobile games. If you really think back to the history of it, and actually if you look at the top grossing revenue games that are sitting there, you've got things like Pokemon Go, Clash of Clans, Candy Crush Saga that you played on Facebook and stuff like that it just kind of expanded onto pure mobile app games with kind of addition as a free game initially, but then microtransactions on top of it, and they make so much money in these games. I think of even just the things that I've been playing on Genshin Impact. I've spent a reasonable amount of money on these on it, even though you don't actually have to, and there's lots of streamers and actually gamers that can play these games free to play, but there's a lot of people that are spending a lot of money on these games, and they're quite varied.
I was going to ask you, Al, so what's you've got so many games to play on your PC. How were you drawn into this mobile game? Was it like a moment of weakness while you were travelling from your office to your kitchen?
Okay, so let's
do something on that journey.
Let's take Genshin. I knew about it. It sounded interesting. My brother started playing it, and he got me into it. So it was more like someone recommending the game that seemed like, I'd give it a try. And because it's free to play, technically, you give it a try. And once you get addicted into the gameplay loop, then things kind of go beyond, goes from there, really. And I was thinking the same with Punishing Grey Raven was definitely I had no idea what the hell it was, right? My brother kind of showed me what it was, sent me clips of it. Interestingly, that one has, how should I say it? So Punishing Grey Raven has been out in China for about a year and a bit, in a Chinese release only. And actually, I think there's like Japan and a Taiwanese server, but pretty much in the sort of Asian market. But behind it, I guess, was lots of content releases. And with that one in particular, it was kind of badged as much more free-to-play friendly, i.e. much more content, much more ability to get the characters, the items, without necessarily having to pay. So that one was actually signals as quite a good one, and the gameplay in that is really good fun, actually. I do enjoy Punishing Grey Raven. So word of mouth, recommendations, and actually just getting hooked into the gameplay loop.
I'm guessing some of these games it's quite a low barrier to entry.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, and with the actual people who have these devices in order to play these games, it must be such such big numbers that you'd think that some of them would want it, like...
As it went at BlizzCon, right? Haven't you all got phones?
Yeah. That don't go down too well, but...
Yeah, I was just going to think, do you think it's going to last?
I think it will. I think there's enough casual players, and me, as I consider myself a little bit more core/hardcore, less so in comparison to my World of Warcraft days. But this, I still consider myself I still spend quite a significant amount of time gaming, and I don't see it going away. I see more things going onto the phone. I did play Pokemon Go as well in the initial phases, then got a bit tired of it. But I can see more games with those kind of things that are in there. I would say my parents are probably playing Candy Crush Saga on their phones as well, because I've given my phone to them and they've got Candy Crush on their phones, right? So it's not going away. I don't think.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, for me, I class myself as more of a core gamer. As in, when I mean core gamer, I mean the types of games I like to play are AAA games, kind of action orientated. Like I either like to play with a mouse or keyboard or a gamepad. So I don't know if it's these types of games or the mobile gaming on a phone or wherever else in general appeal to us. So if it doesn't appeal to us, then there must be this whole swathe of potential gamers out there, and all they really want to do is kind of like kill time. You know what I mean?
It's definitely a bit of that, right? Especially Candy Crush. That's definitely killing time.
Yeah, it's almost like just riffing off what you were saying there, Joe. That a lot of the games aren't designed. They're not actually really games, though, are they? They're just a mechanic an addiction model to get microtransactions, and then, which is kind of the reason why I've stayed away from them. But you can see some of that spilling into the hardcore games
but it's
now, right?
It's the same. You think of, the FIFA Ultimate Team, right? Those loot boxes, a lot of those mechanics are also in these mobile games and things like that. There's so many of these similar microtransaction mechanics all over the place.
Yeah. Free to play. Free to play that's what it is. I mean, like the first experience I had of free to play was on a mobile, and you used to get rewarded for kind of logging in on the day. You used to have your kind of free rewards. It's the same thing, but it works. I mean, it ultimately there's a psychology to all of this, and it's the instant gratification. That loop you're getting.
Yeah, and you just talked about some. We talked about some core games, right? I've just spotted that on a list on Wikipedia for highest grossing mobile games. Number 7 is PUBG Mobile. People are playing PUBG on a mobile phone, and apparently they've had $5 billion in revenue. That is insane.
The numbers are ridiculous. I mean, I've got a list up right I'm looking at, and I'll pick kind of a well-known one. Let's pick one out. Let's pick Clash of Clans. Yeah, they're out since August 2nd, 2012. And if I'm reading this number right, 7 billion. 7 billion, I think, US dollars of revenue since 2012.
Crazy. I mean, what's the cost of making that? It's like nothing.
It's less
right?
less than 0.001% probably.
Yeah.
It's great.
What else have we got? Candy Crush Saga, 2012 again, 5.8 billion US dollars worth of revenue.
There's an article actually, which is quite timely, on Eurogamer, which is called "The Joy of Making the Same Mistake Twice: Why the Grind Isn't Always a Grind." Right. Behind that, obviously it's about human behaviour, right? That we like doing repetitive things and getting the kicks of endorphin kicks, right? And talking about Destiny. For me, Destiny was one of the main games to really abuse human behaviour to get you sucked in from a console. I mean, it's obviously existed in PC and mobile games prior to that, but and then you've got like FIFA with its Ultimate Team. And I'm actually reading a book on Sapiens, right, around humans as well. There's an undertone here of kind of abusing human behaviours for just making money, and I just wonder, like same with that Activision. Go 360 in some of the conversation. I wonder if some of that will backfire at some point. It's like the Activision thing of when
it kind of depends.
Exploiting people.
Yeah, it kind of depends. I think the key here is actually the consumer almost waking up. It's like realizing these tactics, realizing you are being played to these levels, and actually, do you want to? Okay, so then the question becomes: do you recognize it? Do you want to do anything about it? The classic cycle of recognizing a problem to try and fix it.
I genuinely think, right, that a person's kind of emotional drivers far outweigh their rational drivers, their logical drivers.
We're animals at the end of the day, aren't we?
Of course, and I think when you're in the middle of something, you're there to either. I mean, it starts off by you want to pass time, but you're there to have fun. Yeah, you're not gonna stop in the middle of it because, damn, I'm being used and abused here. I've got to stop having fun. You're not gonna think that. You're gonna continue to have fun. You're in the middle of this kind of engaging gameplay, right? and it's giving you something back. You know, it's making you feel good. It's giving you a sense of achievement, whatever it may be. But that's happening.
Yeah, sense of escape and other things, right? That they try and suck you into.
Correct. Yeah, of course.
It's interesting, right? Because I wonder whether, as hardcore gamers, we subconsciously do that kind of check, right? And we probably fall into the trap where, is this game got a mechanic and I feel excited about it because it's new, right? And some of us probably get excited about, oh, well, how did they build that? And that's really cool. And that's moved the industry for, get excited by that. Then there's probably something around, you're having fun either because it's a community activity and you're having banter along the way, or it is, or thirdly, it's got a good narrative and you get that kind of escapism, as you were saying, Al. But then there is a lot of that time when we fall into another category, which is just filler.
The grind.
The grind, yeah. Well, just going back to this Eurogame article, which I will send you guys, right? Yeah, I think it actually talks in here around, we like grind because it's a comfortable feeling doing something repetitive. But if it's, and I enjoy grind as well, right? But it needs to have just enough variety in it that it's
until you realise,
so
you don't realise it's a.
Yeah.
It is like little, almost microtransactions of life, right? Where if you look at your job, right? I mean, how many times have you heard, "I don't like surprises"? Yeah, because you like to have some sort of predictable kind of cycle where you do something, you put in some effort, and then there's the comeback, the payback. Yeah. And that's really the same for almost everything. It really is. I've done X amount of steps and then it's come back. Great, I've got something back. The next cycle is I want to do that again, and I want the end state of that. And
we can get really deep here, right? Because I'm, like I said, reading a book called Sapiens, right? Which it just takes you out of. It just makes you really realise that we're living this life that is not really real, right? We're not designed to stay in one location. We're meant to be foraging and not staying in one place and growing our own food, and certainly not sitting in an office or on a computer playing games. Playing games is not natural at all, right? So it's making me really think: is gaming even fun? It's just an addiction. Is it actually something we should be doing? So even though us three might not be playing mobile games and laughing at those people that are playing those like rats going for whatever they kind of go back for, right, for getting that endorphin kick, and we're laughing at them, but really we're also part of the same trap of playing games. Yeah. It's the same thing, isn't it? Really,
it's all psychology. It really is. I mean, is it purely addiction? And I sometimes think, what is actually addiction? Sometimes I think addiction is basically a person trying to kind of go through the process of getting some sort of end state, if you know what I mean. Where the end state is taking something that's not too good for you, where it's a series of actions, but you kind of keep doing it because you've got that end state, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you kind of almost apply that to anything.
But is that just for your chemical reaction? That's the.
Yeah, mostly. That's how humans are built. We go out, right, and we're on a night out, and we kind of like want to have a few drinks. But I mean, me personally, if there wasn't an end state that I'm having a really good time, I'm having a laugh, whatever it may be, I wouldn't bother. I mean, beer's not a great drink, right? It's not exactly, it's not really amber nectar. Let's be honest, right? But food as well, I mean, obviously you need food to survive, obviously. But the reality is, even when you're cooking something, right, you kind of you go through the process of cooking something, but the end state is you want to sample your cooking. It's great, whatever, it's that end state. I think it's like you can apply that sort of the process, the end state to almost everything that we do.
Yeah, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. I'm addicted, but yeah. Long may the gaming continue.
I've been telling you this for years.
But by extension, that kind of means we're addicted to almost everything that we do in normal life.
We are.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Because if you think about most other animals, they do the same repetitive thing, but just to survive. There's very few that do fun things or take their mind off other things.
Yeah. Keep in mind we're basically a higher evolved form of life now.
Yeah.
That's probably that. Well, who knows? I mean, but it's an interesting kind of thought, and it's kind of like something that we probably should actually talk about in with a bit more detail at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a topic that's listed. I think we tried it once, Joe, but we didn't publish it because I think we needed more time on it. But it was addiction, gambling, loot boxes, which is all kind of interrelated. This whole thing, really. But
this is the human psychology, though, isn't it? At the end of the day. So.
And, I would probably summarize with mobile gaming. It's so accessible now. Literally everyone has smartphones. Especially in the kind of like the Western world, everyone's got one.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, but I sometimes think about. I mean, the last time I played mobile games for any length of time is when stuff like Infinity Blade was out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually finished the first one, but it's mobile games. It's just not the way that I kind of want to play games. That's the reality of it.
It's also
maybe
improving.
It's just me.
It's also improving, though, right? Like I said, with Punishing Grey Raven, I don't actually play much of it on my phone. I use it just in case I need to. And actually, I play it on an emulator, so I'm playing on a mouse and keyboard, which actually feels really nice. And you can hook in a controller.
Cool, but that in effect is not a mobile game.
Mm.
That in effect is something you're kind of like almost projecting onto what you like to play games on. If you know what I mean, mouse and keyboard controller, big screen. And this is the thing I have with mobile games. I just think I know there are people out there who love this sort of thing, but it's not the way I want to play games.
It doesn't do it for me. It's like as addicted as I am to games. As soon as I play a game on a mobile, it just doesn't click. And the last game I played was probably Angry Birds.
Yeah.
When did that come out? How old is that? That's a long time.
Not Fruit Ninja then.
Fruit Ninja, beautiful game. But that sort of stuff, that shit works on mobiles. I just feel that it's not the way I want to play games, but I can understand.
But the market's huge. It's because it's the reach is huge.
So you make that point, Al. But as from a hardcore gamer's perspective that you are, what does it matter that mobile gaming has got a wide reach?
It means that the game is, how should I say, the developer is getting lots of money, which means they're more than likely going to be spending more time and effort to continue to build the game. So like some of them may sit on their laurels and just milk it, right? But some, would actually reuse that investment, that money, to go and actually spend more on that game to try and build it a bit further. And it just feels like this model is what exactly EA, Activision have noticed. They're making tons and tons of money, which is why these microtransactions, that same process goes on to, it just splurges across all the other games that we've got.
Yeah. But I kind of feel that, I don't know about save mobile gaming. If there's any chance to make mobile gaming a bit more palatable for a core gamer, then really Apple have got to do something. Because really, they're the only ecosystem that I see at the moment, and more so than ever with this kind of new kind of M1 RIS technology and the way they're kind of like aligning some of their different kind of like hardware product lines. That they're going to have that synergy. You can develop on a mobile, and that could translate to the tablet, and in turn that can translate to the computer. And they could actually develop one game that you could conceivably kind of run on all of their kind of like hardware platforms. Yeah.
Yes. So now we're kind of getting into, like, we could talk about xCloud now, playing console games on the cloud. But I think mobile games are a completely different form of game.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with you.
It's literally a different beast completely. Yeah. And
I do think they're going AAA though. Genshin Impact. If you look at how well that is doing, and it's still really early days, right? It's only been out for about a year. Its anniversary is coming up, and they are doing
Right.
really, really well, and I don't see them stopping.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that some people are predicting that most, AAA games are going to move to the free-to-play model, and you've got the forces being pulled by Game Pass. The cost of making AAA games continue to increase. The risk of spreading out new franchises and looking at kind of like Cyberpunk, like from a well-respected game studio, flopping so hard. And then we talked about e-football, and there's going to continue to be cross-pollination, and not to go sideways from here, but we look behind Game Pass and what Microsoft might do with their game studios. I think they're going to do like the next evolution of what a live service game is, because Forza. It doesn't make sense to make a big game and then all that effort to release it in one go versus to break Halo or Forza, what's it, 7 or 8, whatever the next one is, into smaller chunks and have it as an ongoing live platform and service. I think that's going to be another interesting next evolution of this stuff.
They've got to look at a risk reward, and I've always long thought the future especially for a lot of the big franchises that that kind of iterate every year anyway. It's just you might as well be kind of a game as a platform, a game as a service. You might as well be. Yeah.
Except for, I would say, with some of those, you're not getting much new content. Even though it's a yearly iteration.
I think there's going to be a tipping point where AAA games or kind of games in general become so expensive to make. Either the process and the methodology or the technology around making a game's got to improve to such a way that it becomes less expensive, or you basically get into a model where you can de-risk your whole investment, which is, that's pretty much what the money men are saying, right? That's what they're talking about. We put X into it, we want Y out of it, right? And it's got to come down to that.
Broken in smaller chunks.
Yeah, correct.
It would be like it's the whole MVP of a game mode. Release
it. Risk it, right? Yeah. And like MVPs. No matter what you say about an MVP, this minimal viable product. You never stop being your MVP. I've never known people like Google, like Facebook, they're putting out experimental stuff out to us all of the time. Whether you notice it or not, right? I mean, you notice that something that you didn't notice before on Facebook just appeared, and you just got on with it. Same with Google, right? They're actually kind of trying different things.
Yeah,
exactly what they're doing. Like, and then they're not publicizing it, but they're doing it because the penetration is such right that the noise has got to be massive to anybody to take notice, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, and then gaming space is going to be hard for them to do that because of YouTube videos and Twitch and all the rest of that. And the community will get, if another community member was playing a different level with someone else slightly different, there'd be an uproar, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I think that's more of a core gaming mentality, though. I think, I mean, you're looking at some of these numbers for mobile games, right? And you think to yourself, damn, if I could make that much money from mobile games or services, who cares about the core gamer?
Yeah.
The core game is now second tier.
It is.
Who I want to basically is deal with the people who are giving me this kind of constant cash flow and revenue. So it's it's a little bit of a danger, to be honest, because obviously I want there to always be these AAA titles. I want to be wowed. I don't want to swipe to basically do anything on my game. I want to hold a controller or a mouse or a keyboard.
Did you ever play what was it, Elite Beat Agent on the DS? That would be something that would be perfect for this.
What, you mean a mobile game?
Yeah. We basically just like patterns and rhythm based kind of games, where you can use the touchscreen, right?
Yeah. But you know what? Do you know what would be perfect for mobiles? The Switch nunchucks, stuff like that. Something along those lines, right?
I thought you were about to say, like text messages and phone calls.
That's a different game.
Perfect for mobiles.
Yeah, don't play games on mobiles.
That's a different game. Yeah. There was one thing that you mentioned, Joe, which I just wanted to pick up on. Maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion on it. I think if I go back to Destiny, right? Played D1, I was wowed by that, right? And it just did things, changed how I interact with games, changed my expectation of games, introduced me to grinding RPGs. I've never had any interest in that sort of stuff, right? And it sounds like you both kind of played a lot of D1, and then I've kind of expectations are all over the place, and I think being wowed by games I personally think is going to reduce as graphics start to become incremental. And I know we go through waves, right? But gameplay mechanics and a lot of games don't really innovate that much, do they? Really?
It's interesting.
You look at, and I just really wonder if that wow thing is just going to reduce and we've got like a VR and complete new medium that's going to wow. I mean, I've not tried VR properly yet, so I'm looking forward to the PSVR whenever it comes out. But where do you stand on the whole being wowed by games? I find that really interesting.
I've got an interesting way to answer this, right? I guess there are two ways I want to answer this, right? It's like I kind of like a month or so ago, I kind of finished the last God of War.
Right, yeah.
That game is like any other kind of Sony IP. Looks amazing, great production values, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not the reason that I was impressed with it. The reason I was impressed with it is because I felt the writing of the game and the development of the relationship between the characters in the game. It's really just ultimately this is when you boil down the game, this is the essence of the game. The father and son are trying to basically climb a mountain to spread the ashes of a dead mother.
Oh, I haven't played the game
yet.
Yeah,
sorry, spoil it for you there, right? But
spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's the essence. That's the essence of the game. That's it. And to be honest, you learn about that in the first kind of like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine.
But that's the essence of the game, right? And I think for me, it's kind of going to be. It's going to have to be about kind of the storytelling and how they use the technology to kind of tell that story.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'd say that fits well with, let's say, these AAA story-driven titles. But that's how I could see it develop. That side of things improving. The human emotional element to it, rather than just like being wowed by, graphics or something else. All of that feeds into it, but it should be just a contributor into the kind of whole story. Because let's be honest, right? When it's all said and done, games are about also pulling some emotion out of somebody. Yeah, whether that's frustration, whether that's relief, whether that's being kind of like excited or wowed. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, and maybe it's kind of like connecting with the story, connecting with the characters. Maybe that's the next thing. Maybe that's the next kind of frontier to try and basically kind of like jump on. And the second thing I would say, VR, PSVR 2. My hopes for it is that, because I've got a PSVR 1, and I've often said to Al that when I can be bothered to put it on, get it set up, right? It is an experience like no other. It is literally game changing. Yeah. But I can't be bothered to. That's the problem, because it's such an effort. But if Sony or somebody else could get to a point where this piece of hardware isn't such a barrier, that would be amazing. It's not about it's not about solving purely technology problems. Yeah, it's about solving pretty much human problems in terms of motion sickness, in terms of practicalities of wearing a headset. That's what they've got to solve. Yeah, and if Sony could do that, they're onto a big thing. And I also think Sony need to do that, because at some point they're not going to be able to sell a console. They're a hardware company. Yeah, so they're going to have to sell something else. So that's how I'm expecting to be wowed. That's how I'm expecting to be wowed, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's I guess, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but just when you think that it couldn't get any better, something new comes along.
Always.
I remember like playing Mario 64 and Zelda. Ocarina of Time, thinking, wow, it couldn't get any better than this. And then playing when you talk about emotions and being Last of Us. I don't know if you played that, but like I have not played many games like that, and there probably are many, but that I've played certainly where I've just felt like I've actually part of a movie.
I kind of think you're just invested in the characters.
Yeah, you're right.
You just don't know it. I mean, it's just, well, you do know it, but you don't know it because our engagement with the characters is usually via a controller or a mouse or a keyboard. But it's gonna maybe flip, and it's gonna be about what they're saying, how they're reacting to a situation as well.
Yeah, it's like I think you probably missed this when you went a little break earlier, but after the Destiny chat, but Destiny's world building and the levels are a character to me. And the dungeons and the mini layers and the mini versions all have had their own unique colours and designs, and like if I see the artwork for the Witch Queen and the new stuff, I almost like it's like a dream picture that's been, so it's part of a dream that's been put there. And they actually make the levels that good. They're like characters so much, and that's another hook for me as well. That escapism in that sense is I don't get that from elsewhere.
You get invested in the world and the universe, really. I mean, I think the analogy I'd make with that is that I'm quite a big fan of the Warhammer 40k universe. Kind of, I just love that. I just love that universe. I just saw what they've done with it, and it's had years of investment. The universe. I mean, just not one character or anything, but the whole thing, the whole lore, the look and feel of the thing. It's been built. It's just layered, man. It's just layered, right? And that's what you kind of want as well. You know what I mean? Like, you recognize parts of the world as well. If someone showed you a photo of something that was in Destiny, where's this? You'd know. Because that's Destiny, and the same thing with Warhammer, World of Warcraft. It just keeps going. I mean, like Metal Gear, we talked about the other day, Al. Just stuff like that.
That's what happens when you build a good story and a good IP, and you have it. And it's the same with games, and whether you call it movies, TV series, it's the same kind of thing, right? You build these kind of worlds, and I would say Genshin Impact does that quite well. For a mobile game.
For a mobile game.
I guess this is another conversation you missed, Joe, when we had another break, right? But I was just saying to Al about as a hardcore gamer, there's you probably have room for one kind of live service type game where you can really sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
And then have the air and space to play other games. You can't do too much more than that. But
no, you can't. You can't. I mean, that's another reality of games these days. Games take time. It wasn't like like days gone where you could finish your game in about a day if you really kind of put your mind to it. It's not like that. You can finish your game in a day, but the thing is that there's all these other parts to it that you wouldn't even have been experiencing it. As for a live service game or an MMO, forget about it.
Yeah.
You're sinking your life into that.
You don't have enough time in the day to even complete everything.
No, you don't. There's so much content these days. It's almost overwhelming. That's the biggest thing that's changed in gaming for me. I remember back in the day, you kind of like when you were kind of playing games, there used to be like one or two games that you'd be interested in. Yeah, one or two, and then. But now, it's like every other month, every other week, there's something that looks interesting. That looks interesting also. But you never really get a chance. You don't have the money. You don't have the time. What do you do? It's kind of like being on Netflix, right? Where you got all this content, you just can't get to it.
Yeah, I've actually always thought about as I'm getting older, and I have a bit more disposable income, and I spend less money on like going out on clothes and other stuff, right? Obviously I've got kids, right, and they're expensive, right? But I was thinking, and I have less time, is it okay to buy lots of games but just experience, never complete them, but just experience a little bit of it and the mechanics and a bit of the world, and then that it's okay to just leave it? And is it better to do that and try lots of games versus feeling like you have to really get sunk into a game because you bought it and carry on when you're not having fun? And
As a guy who does exactly that, and dabbles in games and never really finishes anything, and has this humongous back catalogue that across multiple generations and consoles that he's probably never gonna finish. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, because at the end of the day, right? I mean, it'd be great to have all that time, but if you don't, you kind of want to sample some of this because this is what makes us tick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what we love to do. And you want to sample it. And there's always going to be one or two games where you can actually invest that time in because it's like so amazing. You want to do that, yeah, and that's fine. But for everything else, yeah, just sample it and start on it again when you haven't seen it for a couple of months and when you've got a bit of time and you've got that option. But having those options, I think,
Yeah. It's
a hard one, isn't it? Really.
It is. I mean, I've got so many games on my Switch I haven't even touched.
Yeah. I mean, I've got stuff in cellophane wrap. I've got just like it's just crazy. Yeah.
Wow, I've never done that. I've never done that actually. I've never bought a game and it's been
Yeah.
cellophane. I've at least taken the cellophane off.
Yeah, I've not even done that for certain games that I've owned. You know what I mean? Like, or
Wow.
I've waited so long, right? I waited so long that the game came out on digital. And I never bothered with it. Like, I got the digital version. I'll get the digital version, and then I'll part that. Who knows? It might be worth something in a few years.
I've got a few games in cellophane, and there's no excuse for it really. But
No, of course not. But if it's a good game, it'll be a collector's item. Mark my words.
Do you guys buy any of these kind of models,
figurines,
and all that collector's packs for certain games?
I don't. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of these special editions. I mean, I wouldn't begrudge anybody who did that. I mean, that's totally up to them. I just don't know where to put everything.
That's the key.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah,
is where to put them. I mean, I've got a few figurines, but they're kind of like as a result from a trip to go into Japan or something. But like, not really.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Well, I guess the UK market is a bit more different. It's harder to get access to probably some of the ones that you may want to get figurines for. In Japan, it's absolutely huge, and you'd probably be able to get access to them.
Yeah, I think so. But even now, I mean, like they're offering kind of special edition games, and it'll come with like some swag or whatever it is.
But the quality of those figurines in comparison to a Japanese one is night and day. They're vastly different.
Yeah, potentially.
I just being a dad now, I need to build my man cave.
Same here.
With all these toys, but I was just thinking about the nightmare of having to clean all the dust everywhere. I just couldn't be bothered with it.
You have to pay somebody for that, Jay. You have to pay somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, my dream would be to have like a man cave, a kind of very expansive man cave, that I could just kind of put my stuff in, and my stuff would obviously be tech or gaming related, But yeah. It's just one of these things. Will it ever happen? I don't know, but I live in hope. Yeah, we'll see. We will see. Guys, I think we're all done with the whole mobile conversation by now, and it's basically kind of like swung into other bits and pieces of conversation. I think with that said, I think we need to move on to our next topic. So Al and Jay, I guess the next topic I really want to get into is the recent Intel and kind of AMD hardware announcements, leaks and rumours. We've got a lot of kind of Intel news basically that's come out of the architecture day and some leaks surrounding that. And I've titled this one, Intel Architecture for the Next Decade of Compute. Really? So look, the Intel Architecture Day is just come and gone, leaks surrounding it, and I'm just going to run through some specs that I picked up from the event. So the next iteration of Intel CPU, Intel's 12th gen core, really goes by the name of Alderlake. It's got a big little configuration, much like mobile phones. It has what they call P and E cores, P cores being Golden Cove for low latency workloads, E cores being Gracemont, which are more power limited, but also good for multi-thread workloads. But they're the efficiency cores, they're the small cores. Yeah, the idea you'll have a lot of them running concurrently. Okay, now Intel, in addition, have moved it to what they call Intel 7 node process technology, which is basically just a rebranding of their 10nm process. You know, they're trying to kind of like come in line with what TSMC and Samsung are doing. Yeah, and to be clear, the transistor density of 10nm is really comparable to TSMC 7nm, and maybe even better in some circumstances, I believe. So let's roll into some of the detail. So Golden Cove, their power cores. So, you know, Intel is stating that this is their largest microarchitecture upgrade in the core family in a decade. So big news for them, and a way of getting them back on track and getting a bit more competitive, certainly in the consumer space. Okay, in terms of mind share, I would say in spec. What that means, it's the biggest change since Skylake, which is 14nm. You know, we've had Skylake type architecture since 4 cores. Yeah, back in 2015 is where it came out, and again it gave us that 4-core 2-threaded 6700K. Yeah, 6700K. They say it's 50% wider for decodes, it's 25% wider for micro ops, and it's double the capacity, 45% deeper for the out ordering execution buffer, and it just basically has really big branch prediction improvements. But really, what it comes down to is they're expecting a 19% increase in IPC, your single-threaded performance, versus Rocket Lake. Yeah, Rocket Lake. But what was unusual is that they didn't actually compare it to Willow Cove, which is effectively Tiger Lake for small form factor machines and PCs. So that was quite strange. They just kind of went desktop to desktop, but really by doing that they also omitted a generation. Yeah, they omitted a generation. Okay. Now on the lower powered cores, Gracemont, this is, as we know, based on the Atom family of CPUs. So you're getting 1 core, 1 thread, and the comparison they did is basically with Skylake, the first iteration of Skylake. Again, comparing it to 1 core, 1 thread, and what they saw was a 40% power increase. Yeah, with I believe 40% less power consumption. Yeah, and then when you move on to kind of the multi-threaded use case, you had 4 cores, 4 threads for Gracemont, 2 cores, 4 threads for Skylake. Skylake being kind of obviously has multi-threading for each core, and they actually got an 80% improvement in multi-threaded with 80% less power consumption. That's how they were kind of marketing the thing. Yeah, marketing the thing. All right. The bottom line: better than Skylake core performance at a lower power consumption. Yeah. So to me, that's really impressive stuff. All right. Now, one thing they've done that's actually quite surprising, they've taken out AVX 512 instructions, which are historically there for AI number crunching, and kind of just allow you to kind of work with really large register sizes and the like. Okay, and I think they've done that to allow the big and small cores to function similarly, so they can distribute workload across them. Yeah, but it's quite a big omission, since kind of Intel have been pushing that kind of instruction set for a long time. Okay. Now, what does that really mean for the consumer market? Okay, what that really means is for desktops, you're gonna get up to 8 P cores plus 8 E cores as a configuration. For mobiles, as in laptops, you're gonna get. Hold on a second, guys. I've just been logged out my bloody notes. As I'm speaking, I've got my notes written down right.
Okay. This makes my contribution to laughter.
Yeah, which is good, right? I mean, yeah, for laptop and mobile, it's 6 P cores plus 8 E cores. So 6 of the bigger cores plus up to 8 of the smaller cores. And for the Ultra laptop space, 2 P cores plus 8 E cores. Yeah, 2 P cores plus 8 E cores. Okay, and each one of these guys has an integrated GPU. The mobile variants, 96 physical execution units for their Z graphics, and surprisingly, and I hope I haven't got this wrong, a smaller iGPU for the desktop variants. 32 execution units, which I gather they probably think that most desktop users will go with a dedicated GPU. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the Intel architecture is also highly modular, allows you to mix and match components, for instance P and E cores. 4 E cores take up the same amount of space on the chip die as one P core. It's basically got AI accelerators, GNA 3.0, display engines PCIe, the mobile processors, and only the mobile processors will get a image processing unit. The desktop processor will not have any native Thunderbolt connectivity as part of the CPU itself. Those get handled by the chipset. The bigger mobile chip will have 4 ports of Thunderbolt, the smaller mobile chip 2 ports of Thunderbolt, and they support DDR5, DDR4, LPDDR5, LPDDR4. Okay, and all CPU designs can basically address all 4 types of memory. In addition to that, enhancements to PCIe. CPU supports 20 lanes of PCIe, split between PCI 4 and 5, 16 lanes of PCI 5, by 16 for GPU, by 8 for GPU, and 4x4 for storage. The consumer will effectively have to make a choice between using PCI 5 fully for the GPU or share it with storage. Okay, that's something that obviously people have to observe in the small print. And effectively, you get up to 64 gigabytes a second of bandwidth across these 16 lanes of PCIe 5. Okay, so all very, very impressive stuff. But I think the one thing that was super, I think, important, that I don't know that everybody's kind of either acknowledging or talking about, is the thread director. And how crucial this piece of technology is going to be. The thread director is part of the chip, and why you need it is because not all the cores are the same in Alder Lake. Yeah, It's a combined software and hardware solution between Intel and Microsoft, fundamentally Windows 11. Yeah, and what that does, it basically makes decisions on where to put threads. And what I mean by that is what cores to put the threads on. What I mean by this is that there'll be threads that require low latency, threads that require high efficiency, but are not time critical. Yeah? Because the cores aren't actually like for like. You only want certain workflows running on certain cores. So that's where the whole thing gets very complicated. And if you ask me, if they don't get this right, it could really derail Alder Lake, because you could be getting kind of really poor
Depends
performance.
on how much you can configure it, really. Unless there's some kind of analytics that it builds up over time as you use your PC, but all of those kinds of things can be very temperamental, right?
It's what they're trying to do, Mel. It's what they're trying to do. So it's a hardware software solution working hand in hand with the Windows 11 OS scheduler. So in a way, right, what they're kind of saying to us is that you only get the full benefit of these CPUs if you have Windows 11. That's what they're trying to say to us. Windows 11 will get information from the thread director to make decisions on where it puts threads. And it will be kind of runtime feedback to the OS. Yeah, and it will make decisions based on workload, and it's meant to be able to dynamically kind of adapt, and it's meant to be able to use metrics like thermals, power settings. Yeah, sounds awfully complicated, doesn't it? Already, right? And,
it's introducing just another layer of just complication in the stack. Which could
yeah, definitely.
So certain use cases it might be good, right? But for general use,
It makes you wonder.
I'm just waiting for it to just prioritize all the Microsoft stuff, and then your gaming stack is going to get deprioritized, and that's going to work horrendously, I think.
Yeah, I know, and there is actually a hierarchy as well they put in place that I kind of observed. Check this out, right? The hierarchy in rules, on where to put threads. What it will do first, it will try to put one thread on each P call, your big calls. It will try and fill up that scenario. So if you've got 8 calls, it will have an active thread for each P call. Then the next run down, once that's done, it will basically start running stuff on the E calls. Again, one thread on the E calls, and the E calls have one thread, and they're limited to one thread. And then after the E calls are full, it will start running. Basically, it will start running workload on the secondary threads of the P calls. So that's how it's kind of like filling the bucket. And again, it's meant to be monitoring each thread, doing what it needs to get out of the performance metrics, and it provides suggestions to the OS at runtime in nanosecond slices. Yeah. As a hardware fan, I'm kind of salivating. Obviously, this sounds really complicated. It sounds really interesting. But one side of my brain is telling me, damn, this is complex, right? And I hope they get this working. Yeah, I really do hope they get this working.
So at the very least, they give us a way to configure it ourselves, because I do worry about these things. Because like on day one, it's going to be whatever they've pre-programmed, and what about new programs that are actually running? What sort of analytics they'll have on that, or is it by default just deprioritized?
I mean they're trying to make the OS a little bit more workload aware. But as far as I know, Al, there's no way to configure this yourself. I'm sure someone's going to come out with a way to do this, because really the thread director is talking to the Windows 11 OS scheduler, which is software ultimately. I guess it's your orchestrator, your kind of workload distributor at the OS level. But thread director, in my humble opinion, is way more important for Alderlake than people are giving it credit for. There's nothing basically for Linux yet, so I kind of wonder how that's going to work out. And ultimately, Windows 10 does not have thread director integration. It has its own scheduler that takes its cue from the hardware as well, but it's just not as sophisticated. I'm guessing it doesn't run with as many metrics. And so the question I have, what happens if Windows 11 is delayed? After all of that, what happens? And it wouldn't be the first time, right, that a Windows got delayed. And there's no fallback to Windows 10 either. What happens?
Well, you'll have a chip that doesn't perform to the best of its ability, assuming anyone that goes and purchases it. But
So from what you're saying then, Joe, this is fundamentally baked into the physical hardware as well as requiring software. So there's just no way around it. You can't turn off the software part. You're literally stuck. But
yeah,
doesn't even sound like a worthwhile gamble. Obviously, they made the decision some time back, and maybe expecting Windows 11 to come out earlier and be out in the wild and being tested for a little bit longer than it has.
It is out and about a little bit. I think people can start to upgrade. I can't remember. I think I've seen it already.
Yeah, it is out and about, but Alderlake isn't, and not out in the wild anyway. I mean, it just depends on Intel's strategy around this, because I think they made a statement saying this kind of architectural shift, this big little shift they're talking about, is going to be underpinning their designs for the next 10 years. Yeah, so you might say, like, that mean that they're willing to accept the first generation of kind of big little type chips where it's not going to work great. Yeah, well, you're not going to get the full, you're not going to get the full benefit of it, right? Because the reality is, I mean, there's going to be an element of that now, even if Windows 11 comes out on time, because Windows 10 doesn't really have that level of intelligence, to guide itself. Yeah. So it's a strange one. It's a real strange one. It feels like a gamble. Yeah, when the more I think about this,
it is. You can get some. I could totally understand why that architecture would have lots of benefits, right? Using kind of less important, lower workloads on a much more efficient, lower powered CPU is a great idea. It will reduce the thermals and everything else on your PC and your power output. But it's going to add that layer of complexity, right? There's an extra step here that the OS and the hardware is probably going to have to do to work out which thread, which CPU to go to, and that's going to be like an extra little bit of input lag somewhere that I'm sure that whenever someone gets around to going testing this side by side, I'm sure they'll find something, even if it's very marginal.
Yeah, and the thinking about the kind of the benefits of this architecture, whether it be obviously you're getting more IPC, right? So gamers are going to love that. Really at the moment, single-threaded performance is super important. Beyond that, the advantages I kind of hear about are just to do with power efficiency. Yeah, and maybe relieving the kind of P cores to handle heavier workloads, for instance, for gaming. Yeah. But, I remember one podcast we were talking about this and you were saying to ourselves, like, could you imagine if this thing wasn't able to triage or kind of like orchestrate the threads in the right way, and like you have something like Cyberpunk running on one of some of these kind of like equals. It'd be like gaming Armageddon, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that game is going to test anything, right? But the numbers that you mentioned at the beginning around the performance boost, they don't sound, massively high. But clearly, that they can see the roadmap of somewhere down the line, a few years down the line, this is going to give them the big jumps to be really competitive, given where they are. It just seems very desperate.
Well,
yeah, I would say a 19% IPC increase, gen on gen, like they're doing, it's actually very good. It's solid because the generations these days are kind of separated by 1, maybe 2 years. Yeah, so it's not like it used to be in the old days where, if you weren't running on the latest CPU, literally your game wouldn't run. You'd have 1 frame a second or something stupid like that. Yeah, it just wouldn't run. So we're not back there. 90% IPC increase. Very respectable, more than respectable, to be honest. But is it worth the risk? I don't think Intel have got much of a choice in it.
They don't. Yeah, so back onto your point, Jay. Yeah, it seems risky, but AMD have really pushed the boundaries. They're really pushing them on desktop and kind of laptops now. They have to do something, and this is probably their first steps into that. And I'm probably, Joe, the way I kind of see this is I'm more interested in the next generation of it. The first generation, especially with so much stuff that they're testing with Windows 11, I'm not confident it's going to work on day one.
Yeah. There's an element of that. I mean, if you look at, Zen 1 had teething problems. They kind of resolved a lot of that with Zen Plus. Then Zen 2 is what I'm on, and brilliant. And Zen 3 just kind of like, knocked it into the stratosphere. So this is where AMD's at, and they're getting much more competitive on the laptop space, which is, let's be honest, is the bigger market. But they're also getting really competitive. They've got the performance leadership in the enterprise space now as well, and that's because they're massively multi-core at the moment, and they somehow need to kind of like retain that that advantage somehow. But Intel have decided to go another way for whatever whatever the reasons may be, certainly on desktop. But let's give Intel some credit here, because this is a company since Skylake, where they introduced 4 cores to the world with 2 threads each. They've stuck on that architecture for God knows how long. And they've had their kind of like mind share eroded. I wouldn't say market share, because to be honest, they're still king. But it's only a matter of time when that mind share turns into market share. Give it a bit, and they've got to stem that bleeding.
Yeah, the enthusiasts understand that the AMDs are already pushing that edge now. The brands of Intel, people still are secure. They're still happy with it, even though you're still not getting the best performance value ratio, in comparison to AMD. But yeah, it will take some time, and Intel will have to do something, and this is their kind of initial start.
I think they've come out swinging. They're taking a risk, but that to me is a good sign, because it shows that they want to do something. You're right.
They're hungry for it.
Jay. They're coming across as they're hungry. They're coming across as they're saying, you know what, AMD, you're a threat, and we want to squash threats. Though I don't know if this kind of like integration with Windows 11 is the way to go, but if it works out well, But I think you're right, Al. The first iteration of this may not yield the results consistently that we would be expecting. I think on certain use cases, I'm sure there'll be some consistency, but potentially, it will have to evolve the software.
Typically, just how much of the success of a new generation of a chip is reliant on the chip itself, hardware and software wise, versus the actual OS? I'm just wondering.
I think it's I hear what you're saying. I think it's quite dependent on the OS to a certain degree. Only because I seem to recall that the AMD Zen chips had their own teething problems, because they were going beyond 4 cores. They were going beyond 6 cores. I think they were first to market with 8 cores, 2 threads. And even with something like that, where all the cores are the same, the OS still needs to understand it can leverage them. That they're there to be used. It's not as complicated, mind you, but it's certainly there. So it's I think it's important, definitely important, to have the software that leverages your hardware. But again, if you get to a point where the software, the OS, right, will work consistently across the board, right, and then it becomes, how far can your hardware be pushed? Yeah, we can make it work consistently.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably spoke about this on a previous podcast, but at least from a perception point of view, if I look at the features of Windows 11, where they've kind of tried to really embed Android apps, they've gone with embedding Game Pass and the Xbox whole ecosystem in. They really particularly seem to be leaning into the whole gaming thing and really taking it seriously is not the wrong thing, because I've always been taking it seriously, but really pushing it even further, really more games focused, given that you can do so much on a Windows platform. It'd be really interesting to see how closely they've worked with Intel to really make this work from a gaming perspective, because theoretically it's got a lot of potential, right? Games are so complicated now, and you mentioned the different types of loads and complex computation that needs to happen. This sounds like it's take away the numbers of plus 20% performance or what they can gain. It sounds like it's got some legs if they can get it right. It might have some teething problems. Too much money at stake.
Absolutely. I mean, like if Intel are talking about this as this is our architecture for the next 10 years. Then there's a lot at stake here. Either Intel get this working, or they're gonna lose. And I don't believe for a second that Intel will stop existing, but they're gonna lose, and they may not be the company they are today. Especially if someone like AMD, or whoever else comes on the scene, and push. I mean, AMD they just keep going.
Yeah,
it's impressive. It's an impressive competition, to be quite honest. I do hope that this actually works out for Intel, that they knock Alderlake out of the park. The Windows 11 integration works as well as it can work. Yeah, I'm sure it will need time, but as well as it can work. Because seriously, we don't want AMD to start running away with it. If you know what I mean, because we've seen signs of that already, right? Where their kind of approach to things is somewhat different than what it was. Maybe
especially the pricing of the most recent Zen 3s, right? So you can see they're already doing a kind of almost a bit Intel-ish in their approach.
That's the thing. When you know your top, right? When you know on paper and in practice, your product is leading edge, right? Then your rational thoughts are, well, we can charge more because there's nothing on the market that competes. And this is why we need Intel to be competitive. Yeah, I mean, enthusiasts need to stop laughing at their product line. One thing, and that will give kind of AMD a slap. You know what I mean? And then they'll hopefully continue to innovate and push, and we'll get better products from them. And this is the kind of like perpetual cycle most consumers should want, if you know what I mean. Like that guy from Godzilla said in the first movie, let them fight. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good signs, I think, from Intel, and obviously we've not really touched upon it yet, but the whole 3nm TSMC stuff and the GPU stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the free A&M stuff. I mean, I don't know if there's much of a story there. I think Intel have historically been, how they've been described is a fab with chip design. Jay, I don't know if you're close to any of this, but a fab is where you typically kind of manufacture chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you give the fab your chip design. Fab creates, the chips, with wafers, so on and so forth. But Intel have always historically had this really big manufacturing arm to their business. AMD did as well, but they sold off Global Foundry some time ago, and they're more about chip design these days.
Kind of like how Apple operate, right? They kind of just focus on the design, outsource the.
Well, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. But yeah, I mean with Intel, I think this whole 3nm, we're going to buy some TSMC, who who are the biggest manufacturers of silicon and chips in the world right at the moment. It's about really, I think, hedging their bet somewhat, because they've had a torrid time with their 10nm chips. They just couldn't get it right. So, they're kind of hedging their bets, I think. And to be honest, I read somewhere that they've always been kind of customers of TSMC. Yeah, they've always been customers. And they themselves also want to basically go down the route of providing kind of manufacturer capability to other companies. Historically, their fabs were for Intel chips or Intel products. But now they're kind of adding an extra kind of like, let's say, part to their business where they want to be like a TSMC. And part of that is maybe just the balance, balance the capacity as well. If they've got capacity here, their business could be more malleable, I kind of think.
Just a question I had is, in this Intel AMD kind of battle, where does Apple kind of sit, given they've got their new M1 chip and they're actually trying to use ARM's kind of architecture to...
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
Again, you guys are far more knowledgeable than me, but it seems they're trying to go from kind of mobile architecture into the desktop kind of probably laptop architecture first, and then I don't know, they've probably got a target to attack desktops as well.
Yeah. Al, do you want to have a go first at this? Kind of like just give your views on this one, because I've got lots of views.
Yeah, because I think we covered it in some of the updates on Apple M1, as well as the RISC stuff that we kind of covered as well, right? I guess it's moving down that kind of architecture of more efficient and kind of slightly more, the efficiency of a kind of a CPU, and then actually building upon that to kind of move that further, and the whole x86 versus the sort of RISC kind of CPUs, ultimately, laptop kind of markets around what Apple will do, and then it'll push it further.
Yeah.
But it's good having that kind of side competition.
Yeah.
That's kind of that.
Yeah, I'm feeling it's about competition ultimately. But I will say, look, ARM didn't start life as any sort of mobile chip. ARM started life as a full-blown computer. Yeah, that's how it started. It's just happens that ARM is an extremely efficient, architecture. Yeah, so it's obviously made its way into certain kind of areas because organically, it just was a good fit, I think. You hear rumors that Intel and even AMD are looking at Apple as true competition down the line. Yeah, true competition down the line. And, a lot of that has to be because if Apple chooses to get into any, domain and business area, and to degrees, same with Google, people like that, right? They're ultimately going to try and go there to win and disrupt it.
Yep.
Yeah, so for one thing. And the other part to this is that having people adopt a new variant of a CPU is, and having that ambition is all well and good, but you need software to run on it. And the other side of this is that Linux is always run on RISC, but the Linux kind of like lovers out there will hate me for saying this, but in terms of numbers, it is a second tier OS for the consumers compared to Windows. And what have Microsoft just done? They've basically brought out a version of Windows that runs on ARM/RISC. So, I mean, why they did that themselves? I mean, I guess they were maybe kind of looking at the way that the world was kind of headed, and they have to make bets themselves. Yeah, they have to make bets themselves. But it's there. In my view, that will only get more and more mature. So people like Intel and AMD, they don't have the buffer of saying, well, Windows is an x86 operating system. Windows isn't now an x86 operating system. Windows is now a RISC operating system as well. And that, coupled with Apple getting into silicon design, because that's what they're doing, it's silicon design, yeah? That must be scaring the shit out of them. They're thinking about market share here. And whilst I think Apple work on a kind of like very much a walled, like garden type of approach, that they've got the ecosystem.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that should Apple decide they want to produce chips and sell them for whatever purpose you want those chips for, that's going to be a problem. It's going to take market share.
And just to throw a further thing, there are Chinese competitors which are slowly already doing this stuff as well. That it's not open to the kind of Western markets, and they've not really pushed it out. But they are making CPUs. I don't think they're making GPUs just yet. I know they're making CPUs, but eventually there'll be more competition that'll be out there.
Yeah, we need to talk about those guys, Al.
It is. We've got it as a topic item.
Yeah,
but,
it's not for right now, but yeah, that's an interesting subject.
It's great. I mean, it's just the one thing I'll say that, and we'll say it for another time. It's crazy how they can, start producing TV screens for some, the base technology, and then in 3 years they make the best screens with the best resolution, best illumination, just the best response times. Literally anything in the last, probably since the beginning of time, right? They own everything from the stack, right? Creating the best technology now from, manufacturing everything. It's you're not able to compete. Just a matter of time, right? Before we'll be working in the factories making chips for the Eastern market.
No, there'll be robots. Robots will do it all for us.
It's a highly automated thing already, guys. From what I understand about it.
Yeah, must be. Yeah.
And guys, you know what? With that said, I think we should move on to the next part of the Intel hardware news, and that is their GPUs. And we've now got a product name for it, Arch. Short, sharp, and punchy.
Is it Arch or is it Arc? I would have called it Arc.
It's actually alright. Probably you might be right there, Al. It might be called Arc. It's ARC. Yeah, ARC. Oh, actually, I would have preferred Arc.
I would have taken that as Arc.
Yeah, definitely. But it's not quite out in the open yet. The information we got for Intel was pretty much at the logical level, so logical layouts of the architecture. No performance numbers, no clock speeds, so they're kind of keeping that sort of stuff close, to their chest at the moment. What we can say about this, however, that Intel have spent 2 years and no doubt a lot of money trying to enter this discrete GPU market. And they've got two variants. They've got ZHPG, which I understand, and I hope I'm getting this right, high performance graphics. And they've got ZHPC, high performance compute, which is more for enterprise. Or maybe even miners. Let's not leave those guys out, right? Because, we know they love their GPUs, obviously. We know that ZLP is already available. Yeah. The LP here meaning kind of lower power. I mean, and I'm talking about, I think, energy rather than, graphics performance. And these guys, Intel have got a multi-year roadmap, which I think has been, I would say, named and branded in such a way that it speaks to gamers. I'll go through this, right? They've got the first thing that's going to come out is called Alchemist. ZHPG, ray traced graphics, DX12 Ultimate compatible, which means mesh shaders, variable rate shading, sampler feedback. But that's coming out Q1 2022. No definite date as yet for desktop and mobile. Then along the roadmap, they also have this thing called Battle Mage, right? Z2 HPG, right? Battle Mage. Then after that, they've got this thing called Celestial, Z3 HPG, and then Druid. They call this Z Next HPG. So what can I say? It just kind of feels they love RPGs here.
Yeah, RPG.
Yeah.
Although I think some people made comments that Celestial isn't a type of role, because the other ones are all kind of role/character type position, but Celestial is a kind of like an area, a thing rather than a role.
Celestial, that I know anyway, I mean, it's part of the Marvel universe. It's actually a space god. Yeah, you would have seen them in, I think, some of the Infinity War saga or whatever, or in some of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know that big... You saw one kind of scene where a big figure just kind of like hit the ground with their staff, and then everybody died on the planet. That was a Celestial. Yeah, I'm an ex-comic geek. Yeah, this is why I kind of know this kind of shit. But I'm an ex-comic geek. So yeah, I mean, Arc is really kind of shaping up, and it's the brand name, kind of like Radeon, kind of like our RTX or GeForce. Rolling into some of the specs, right? Let me just try and be kind of quick about this, right? Intel no longer using EUs or execution units. These execution units are about computing shaders, okay? But they're talking about them. They renamed them, and they're calling them Z cores. Yeah, Z cores. Yeah, each Z core can have 16 vector engines, and each can process 256 bits per cycle. Okay, so that effectively 128 floating point 32 ops per cycle. Yeah, it's effectively an arithmetic logic unit. In conjunction with that, they also have 16 matrix engines. Each can process 1024 bits per cycle, which is in effect is 64 FP16 operations per cycle, or 128 int 8. And why I'm talking about int is these are effectively tensors. These are effectively tensor-cores, because with AI processing, you talk about int rather than FP. Okay. And it looks like to me they're dedicating more silicon to neural net and AI processing in the shape of these matrix engines, even more so than NVIDIA, which is quite interesting. And hence we've got this Z super sampling. Okay, these Arc CPUs are also organized into they call render slices. So each render slice can have 4 Z cores, 4 ray trace units, 4 texture samplers, and these geometry and raster front ends, pixel back ends. And Alchemist can have up to 8 of these slices. I guess that would be their top card. They could occupy all 8 slices, and obviously it kind of like goes down depending on low or medium end GPUs. Yeah, it sounds like it's for scaling the product. Yeah. And these slices also communicate via a fabric, which is very kind of AMD-like. The fabric contains L2 cache. They're rumored to have DisplayPort 2.0 support, and they would be first to the market if this happened. And they're using TSMC 6nm process, which I guess could be also a first. They have power per watt improvements over the existing ZLP GPUs they have. They have estimated clock speeds of up to 2.4 gigahertz, which sit somewhere between AMD and NVIDIA. AMD being a little bit higher, NVIDIA obviously a bit lower. Based on some of these assumptions and predictions, we're talking about 18.5 teraflops of FP32 compute. if we're using all 8 slices. Okay, and how that compares to AMD and Nvidia, I'll tell you as soon as I log back into my notes again. So the AMD 6900, their top end card is approximately 23 T-flops. The top end Nvidia card 3090 is 35 T-flops. And to be clear, guys, I mean a T-flop is it's no kind of like super accurate way of kind of gauging graphics performance. This is purely compute. There's other factors obviously as well, but it gives you a sense of where they lie. Yeah. So there you have it. I mean, those are the information that was delivered, the stats they've provided. I mean, they haven't gone deep into the specification. I will say that Z's super sampling actually looks super impressive. It actually looks as if it does more than, let's say, Nvidia's DLSS, but they may have better adoption with it because it will work on other types of graphics card. So it's an interesting place they put themselves. Yeah, and I guess what I kind of think when I see all of this is that, will this drive competition? I think the answer has to be yes. Yeah, but will Intel price these things to either push AMD and Nvidia to be a bit fairer of their pricing, or will they come into this market and say, you know what, I like our product, so we're just going to price it in a similar way to both kind of AMD and Nvidia. We're not going to try and undercut these guys. Our product's too good for that. And again, could Intel, if they're being smart and savvy about this, could they win this GPU market at least for the short term? That's what comes into my mind. I mean, I think the old Intel would have just said, yep, we're just going to price it the same as AMD and Nvidia. We're not going to try and undercut these guys. We're not going to try and give it any more value. Our products are too good. But with where Intel are now, kind of, I would be super surprised if they didn't.
Have they mentioned any extra boost by using their Intel CPUs with that as well? Or?
Not yet, but I think that's on the cards. I think you have AMD who have their A+A, and I would be surprised if Intel didn't have a similar thing with I+I.
I would expect so at some point, but it's one of those. I think even just based on the metrics you covered there, Joe, I think it really does depend on which market they're going for, right? I suspect they won't be going after the sort of main gamers. I suspect they'll package it with their kind of Intel kind of chipsets, and go for kind of laptop market. That's my guess, but we'll see.
I think that they definitely will go after the laptop market, no doubt about that. But I think, looking at the kind of noises they're making, I think they will try to go the desktop discrete GPU market. Mm-hmm. The kind of power level they're talking about, the fact that they're talking about ZSS, they effectively come out with a card that, in terms of feature set, has immediate parity. If you know what I mean, it has immediate parity. There's not a feature here that's missing yet, obviously, and DLSS and FSR being so much in the kind of news at the moment, they've immediately said we've got our own variant of that, and it sounds good. So I'm hoping they're in it to win it, because GPUs are still frighteningly expensive.
Yeah,
for what they are.
This happens in a lot of industries, right? To take a bit of a sidestep, like cars. Like, it's very hard for a new manufacturer to come from nowhere, right? And Tesla seem to have done it, but they've reinvented themselves they reinvented the industry and entered the market at the same time through electric cars. This scenario is very different, right? Because you've got the whole ecosystem of monitors and the different types of sync and games being built, consoles and games for PC and consoles all kind of being tweaked for certain hardware. All of these players going to join the ecosystem. It's almost like it's an upward hill they're pushing against, aren't they? It's not just a parity of performance or a cheap price that's going to win it from them. There needs to be a pull from the other side that isn't just consumers, it's suppliers as well.
Yeah,
and
great. What I will say to that is Intel have got a lot of money. Number two, they've got a lot of partnerships. And number three, they've actually already got GPUs out in the world. They've got so many integrated GPUs out in the world.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Right? They're not actually as behind with, let's say, drivers and software as we might think.
Yeah, that's true,
yeah. So they've got the some fundamentals there. So I just think, like they are new, but they're not so new that, it's not like somebody starting for a fresh. It's like it's kind of like someone who, and taking your car analogy, who has
It's probably like you're a basic kind of consumer, car manufacturer, but then you're gonna go you're gonna go into F1 and go racing. But it's similar, right? But you just gotta up the game, I guess, around it.
Correct. We make family cars, but now we're going to basically create a supercar. But you've still got people who know about cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different.
It's a fair point, and again, you could probably shoot me down here, but it's probably arguably harder to make an integrated CPU and graphics card than it is to have a discrete one, right? It's probably more
Potentially. Potentially, because you've got a lot less kind of die space on the chip to work with, and real estate is, I guess, quite important. But equally, I don't think people have any sort of kind of real expectation when it comes to integrated graphics. Whereas if you create a discrete graphics GPU, they are all over you. You know what I mean? Like they're benchmarking this stuff to hell.
Would you buy one? What would be the reason? What would be the reason that either of you would buy one?
That's an interesting point, actually. Do you know what? I've got to say, I'm actually quite excited with what Intel are doing. No, I don't think I'm necessarily. I mean, my view was I was going to go all AMD at some point, especially if kind of RDNA 3, the next iteration of graphics card was going to be as good as they were saying it was going to be, or maybe even RDNA 4, because that timing wise that would have been the right time to kind of upgrade. Not right now, because I'm not really going to do anything with it. But looking at what Intel are doing, for me, I'm a bit of a tech head, and so when I see some of this stuff, I mean, I probably think first about, wow, look at the specs. Look at this. This is clever. Look at that. That's clever. I don't really actually think about what it's actually going to do for me. Yeah.
That's where I come in, because I similarly get interested in this stuff, right? Not to the level of depth that you guys do, and I don't have the technical knowledge, but I do get excited by power and performance and costs and that sort of thing. But where I love my consoles because it's just simplified, and you get far less issues. I know that's completely changed. That's probably like an old view, but it's all down to the use case, right? Even if a game is better on a PC with 30% better graphics, it doesn't really change the gameplay, and things are getting so good now, photorealistic. It'd be interesting to see what if you were to say to me that these new Intel chips and graphics cards change the dynamic, that the developer could make different mechanics because the processing's done in a different way, right? An example being, we've got these solid state hard drives that the game designers are changing how you load into another level. Rather than fill a bit of content, they can just go straight into it. If there was that type of equivalent for the chips, right, and it had a meaningful use case, then I think it would be good. But I don't quite. And these guys will struggle to come up with a use case. In the same way with a lot of AI, machine learning stuff. All this stuff is changing now, but it's all hyped, and even VR to an extent.
Yeah.
And the use cases haven't really come along.
I hear you. I personally think, and I'm thinking more of Intel GPU than CPU. I personally think that Intel's secret weapon will be more AI based, more so than Nvidia and AMD, just by the amount of silicon they put in these things, and just from the perspective of the kinds of things they've done for AI in their recent past. Yeah. Now, what people choose to do with that technology is another thing, because AI is a bit of an open book at the moment. It's really about, it's a bit like the not quite the Wild West, but you're just exploring a new continent almost.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel that that's where Intel's advantage, if there is any, will be. Because it just feels like. I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Z super sampling versus DLSS versus FSR. FSR spatial, yeah, not really anything to do. There's no AI in it, so it's kind of fairly good algorithm, but not that sophisticated in comparison. DLSS, I think, takes 16 samples of a pixel. What that means, I think it's about like sampling the history, if you like.
Yeah.
ZSS is taking 64 samples. Yeah. And my thinking is, in order to accomplish that, right, you must have enough silicon to do that quickly. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, right, doing all this stuff, there's an overhead, and you don't want to tank the frame rate. So it just makes me feel that, they've invested a lot of money in some of this kind of AI tech, and if kind of developers could leverage it, that would be amazing. I mean, I hear even in Insomniac on the PS5, right, leverage some sort of AI tech for the animation for the new Spider-Man. Yeah, and in comparison, I'm imagining the PS5's hardware is quite low powered for AI. Yeah, so it's kind of all these things. It's like the it's an uncharted continent that people have got to basically to start to explore.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of excited they're giving you a lot of silicon, potentially giving you a lot of silicon to kind of explore it.
Yeah, it will ultimately depend on the outcome of all the performance tests that go with it, right? For the various workloads,
Yeah,
what is it going to be good for, and then the price, and then when you compare it against Nvidia's offering and AMD's offering, then it may be competitive. And there's plenty of Bitcoin miners still out there that are still buying up these GPUs, right? So
Correct.
even if Intel fulfills that market, at least it'll ease up some of the other market that we've got. So it will ultimately depend on the performance and price ratios of these things.
Correct. I think. Guys, with that being said, and looking at the specs and what Intel have been able to do so far, and I should say able to communicate. Yeah, my hope is that they're super competitive, three-way dance between Intel, Nvidia, and AMD. That can only be good. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, right, there were loads of companies, entities who were in the GPU market. Was it Matrix, Voodoo, 3DFX, Nvidia, ATI, which is I think it's now AMD. So there were so many, right? And that was a period of really big innovation. Yeah, that's what we kind of want to see.
Yeah.
Let's have that back. And Apple, if you want to make a GPU as well, go for it.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to compete on price, though.
No, probably not. It'll be a luxury item.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next topic. Let's talk about AMD. What did I title this? I titled this, I think it was Thank You Gigabyte. Yeah. And the reason I did that, around AMD news was because, I mean, Gigabyte are having a bad time with it. I think, Al, you said they had some sort of PSU issues as well.
Yeah, it's all over the news outlets with exploding PSUs, but yeah.
Yeah. Terrible. And they were also part of a ransomware attack. And as a consequence of that, they had a load of AMD news leaked, because obviously they didn't pay their fee. Now, what seems to have come out is that and I'm just going to go through. It's a mixture of specs and other, I think, notable items. Zen 4 will have, by looks of things, double the amount of cache, versus Zen 3. Yeah, that just means more performance. I think in terms of AMD, they seem to have always done well with their kind of cache designs and architecture. Yeah, and they've leveraged a lot of performance out of that. AMD CPUs look as if they're also going to start supporting AVX 512, which is exactly what Intel are now taking away from Alder Lake. And the reasons to have AVX 512, and again, it's really, I feel there's a limited kind of types of workloads you can maybe use it for, but it seems to be more about AI, 512-bit math operations. So you've just got, pretty wide kind of operations you can run, and there's certain workloads that benefits. But effectively, they could be the only product on the market, the consumer market, that supports it. Weirdly, on the server side, AMD look as if they're going to be going up to 96 cores, plus 12 channels of DDR5, which is kind of insane. This is for their Genoa range of CPUs, which is the successor to EPYC. And the reason I kind of call this out is that, generally speaking, right, that's probably an indicator that AMD have not stopped pushing the amount of cores. Yeah, they've not stopped pushing the amount of cores. We can potentially see more even on the consumer space. The general strategy with PCIe 4 and 5 is, well, it looks like they're sticking with PCIe 4 for the foreseeable future, but they're providing more lanes of PCIe 4, which ultimately means you can connect more PCIe 4 devices rather than having kind of bigger lanes, if you like, which I think in the shorter term makes kind of sense. I mean, to be quite honest, we're only now seeing more PCIe 4 storage devices. Yeah, we know that PCIe 4 GPUs don't really saturate that interface. Yeah, it's not a deal breaker at all, and it's going to be expensive. That's the other thing to consider. iGPUs are going to make an appearance on Zen 4 and AM5, and AMD RX 7000, the next iteration of GPUs, is going to feature both RDNA 3 and RDNA 2, which is kind of weird, but also possibly going to be a good thing for the consumers. So, Al, any thoughts on your end about those nuggets of information?
I'm wondering if they're reusing. I wonder if they're reusing some old chips that they've got residual somewhere, or the not so good ones, and shoving it in as an iGPU. It'd be interesting to see what performance you can get out of them as well.
Yeah.
And, they'd be rolling out all their APUs as well anyway, so it's just like, well, do they really need to do this? But
yeah, I don't think it works that way for iGPUs though. I think it's got to be part of the kind of CPU die. They can't. I don't know if they can modularize stuff like that, to be honest. But I take your point. I think that it's a bit interesting on the kind of RX 7000 side of things, because they're mixing and matching. My only hope with that is, I don't care they are, but if they're doing it because they want to basically sell people cheaper GPUs, I'm all for that. If they're not, I'm not for that at all. Because there has to be some upside to the consumer and the gamer.
Yeah, and it's good hearing about the cache and stuff like that, and kind of pushing the boundaries more on the PCIe connector and using as much as we can out of it, really. So
they're the cache kings, as we know. Infinity cache or Infinity whatever it may be, right? I mean, and then Vcache, which you're hearing rumors that, I think they're talking about Vcache enabled Zen 3 chips coming out maybe Q1 next year, but it would not surprise me if AMD brought out some products for the end of this year to coincide when Alder Lake basically launches, and I'm thinking only their kind of high-end chips, just to basically have that positive kind of like
Yeah, I suspect they would have, well, prior to the leak, I guess they would have kept this in their back pocket for somewhere. It feels like a Q2, Q3 next year, right? Why would they I can imagine they would just like slowly squeeze Intel bit by bit as as Intel tries to catch
Yeah,
up.
I mean, apparently Vcache has been there for a while. You know, it was actually there or thereabouts when Zen 2 came out, actually, but they never kind of rolled it out. And you know, AMD doing all sorts of interesting things with their packaging. You know, the stacking for the caches, the different modules they're piecing together. It's like Lego almost. So it's really interesting stuff.
But probably, I guess, with any leaks, is always take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, well,
or large pinch of salt,
big
maybe.
bag of it. You know what I mean? But it's like, I mean, but some of this stuff is not that far fetched. I mean, if you ask me, it's not outlandish. You know, you always take it with a pinch of salt. But the actual thing that I think I would kind of be skeptical on more than anything is the iGPUs. Yeah, the iGPUs themselves. But I mean, you know, we'll see. You know, they're moving to this AM5 socket, which apparently gives them a bit more power delivery. So you can imagine that's a factor, but we'll see. Now, AMD, they are not standing still.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because we were getting a little bit worried that they could, but it seems like they're not behind the scenes.
Yeah, they're kind of arming up. Let's put it that way. They know what's coming, you know. And I again, I will say thank you, Gigabyte. Thank you.
What do you guys think is the next kind of breakthrough that all of these manufacturers need to get through, where the order of who's the most strongest is really going to get tested again?
It's a difficult thing to answer, really, because, you know, generally speaking, I think for the next 5 years, I think it's going to be the regular, you know, performance versus power. Power being power consumption. I think we've always based things on those metrics.
Yeah.
You know, can we go faster by consuming less power? Because if you consume less power, then you generate less heat. You generate less heat, your CPU or whatever piece of silicon can run at that clock for a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change. But what I kind of see people doing now is being a bit more innovative with how they put the different components together. It's like the packaging thing we just discussed. AMD are going to do a lot of this stacking for their caches. I know Intel are looking at that. And effectively what that really means is that if you look at the a chip, right, the die space, you know, you've got an X by Y chip. The reality is you can only put so much on there. And what the fabs have been doing, they've been improving their processes so they can make the chips a bit more dense. They can put more on there. Yeah. You know, obviously you're going to get to a point where, you know, it's the land of diminishing returns, right? So instead of building kind of like, you know, on a 2D space, you kind of like build on the kind of 3D space. You know, that's where I think the next area of competition is going to be. Who's going to innovate most of that?
It will need to be some kind of new type of metal materials that they build on. Either they go even smaller or they get better. Because there's the laws of thermodynamics that restrict them, and some of that is restricted by the materials, right?
I would agree.
And at some point, graphics fidelity will get to a point where it's pointless to go any further. And I think we're getting close, right? You can see it with 4K TVs and that sort of stuff. You get to a point where we probably won't need any more.
Yeah.
So then what else?
I think it'll move away from resolution, outright resolution.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
You know, people will kind of look at what they can do with a pixel. You know, I mean, it's really bad way of saying it, but if you look at typically a game, right? I mean, you know, you got your resolution, the sharpness of the scene, and whatnot, but ultimately, you want a lot going on in that scene, you know, and maybe that's what they kind of gonna have to look at. It won't be a resolution play. It's just about how much can you kind of push in terms of what's going on in the scene. Stay at 4K for God's sake, right? Or go for 8K if you have to, right? But really, how many particles can you push? How dense?
Well,
yeah,
most games are still on 1080p.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they are. I mean, generally speaking, I think for silicon, I think it'll be kind of packaging tech, stacking. You know, it's just how much more you get out of that real estate, and I mean that's for me that's the 5 year thing, and beyond that I don't know. I mean I don't know enough about this stuff, but I mean people talking about materials that are about replacing silicon.
Yeah,
That's that sort of thing.
And Jay, on your question, I think also now that you've kind of forced the question, I think I was thinking around the green aspects of actually gaming. Actually how much whether we can actually calculate the kind of a green efficiency of playing certain games or not, or a counter kind of factor really, because of if you want to do you want to downscale your game just to make it more green because you're consuming less power?
Yeah,
no, that's interesting. Really interesting point. I always, I know as much. I know I'm an Apple fanboy, right? And I know clearly you two aren't, right? But
I am actually.
Okay, maybe okay. As much as people shit on them, sorry for cursing, but in that closed garden, they drive quite good efficiencies across all the software layers, on whether it's closest to the actual user or to all the layers on the hardware. And I really wonder how much efficiency will be gained from, like, let's say, NVIDIA working more closely with Windows and, let's say, the Unreal Game Engine 5 or what's coming out, and then even the developers who use Unreal Engine 5, they can really squeeze out even more performance versus having more layers of translation. In the same way that Apple has control over those layers they own, right? And
definitely true. I mean, they're able to tune for a well-defined set of hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and no matter what you say, that's going to yield different sorts of results. If you look at the consoles, something like a PS4, that thing had anemic CPU hardware, and it was launched, let alone 7 years later.
I remember. It's amazing we can get out of that hardware.
Exactly. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm amazed at some of the first party games, but they were smart, right? I mean, they I think I'm wrong to say they actually pioneered asynchronous compute on the graphics card. They certainly made it very, very popular, and I think that was because they knew the kind of CPU was a bit anemic, and they needed to shift as much onto the GPU as possible. And that's why you're getting that sort of level of performance, out of it. So I kind of think walled gardens, it's not open, doesn't speak to a lot of people who love kind of computer tech, but you can't argue with the results. You can't argue with the results.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, using those good principles, because again, Apple is so big, has so many departments all having to work together. I'm saying. Outside of the Apple ecosystem, the chip manufacturers and all that layer stack all the way up to the game developers, whether they can work even closer together. I mean, when anything gets optimized, it's diminishing returns as well, isn't it? They'll give up at some point where the cost versus the benefit isn't worth it.
Yeah, you almost have to go back to basics then and re-engineer the whole thing just to avoid those layers that you've created.
Yeah. It's going to be time and money, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, if you think about, if you've got a fairly restrictive, defined set of kind of hardware, CPUs, GPU combinations, even down to the drives, because someone like Apple probably puts the same drives or the same SSDs or flash memory across all of their products, and they have very defined known metrics that a developer can work against. Whereas the Windows ecosystem, you've got PCs that are probably kind of 15 years old running some of this stuff. Who knows, right? And then you've got to make all of this stuff work.
Exactly,
It's a multiplier. It's an absolute multiplier. If you had all the money in the world, you could absolutely do this, and all the time in the world, I should say. But this is where I think PC gaming to get the best results, you are having to brute force. You are the brute force solution, whereas the consoles, you're the efficiency optimization solution.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the difference lies in. I think Apple falls into that camp as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Really good point. Just the other thing I wanted to just quickly, because we're running quite long on this, is, and this could sound like a complete left field thing, but if I look at FIFA, right, then FIFA 22, they're talking about this hyper motion thing, right? Whether beyond the marketing, right, I can see a use case where you're playing a football game and you're only controlling one character, but they've used AI to just take lots of video recordings of football games and the kind of player behaviour. They could use AI they could use all of that stuff to the AI generate, random behaviour in the game, right, to make it feel more authentic, because you're only controlling one person, really, one character at a time, right, or maybe two or three around them, and the rest of them are just, but all the micro hand movements and micro body, just to make it feel more real. I just feel if you strip away a lot of games and the good graphics, right, not just FIFA, but other games. It's fundamentally the game models and what they're doing is quite simplistic. And I know there are games out there where they're doing more things, but it's on rails, prescripted animations or gaming models. And I really think like there's going to be a lot more compute power into games that opens up it feeling more real, but you're not actually interacting necessarily with everything on the scene. And I think that's where maybe the use case could really drive, and maybe a new architecture or a new model that all these manufacturers go into. It's just a blue sky thinking for me, but that's just where
it's interesting. That plays into kind of AI and the like, because I mean, for me, when I think about stuff like that, I think to myself, you boil down a game loop. Yeah, game loops sound quite simple. But then you tack on the hundreds, if not thousands, of events that could happen in a given game, and then games are getting more and more complicated in terms of the feedback to the gamer and what their expectations are. There's a kind of overhead of doing all of that, if you know what I mean. Like you're playing a football game. In the old days, you would basically have every sprite would look exactly the same. Whatever the football game was, right?
Yeah.
No individuality. Every player behaved the same way, yeah. And and there were a limited amount of responses. If you tackled someone, that's it. Same like, tackle done.
Yeah.
There's no layers. There's no layers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now our expectations are totally different. We want the little idiosyncrasies, we want the nuances of the thing. Yeah, we want to see all of that.
Yeah.
Right? Even to think about something like that and capture something like that is a hell of a lot of work in my view.
Well, they've got the groundwork. I mean, I think football games are interesting where they've got the, how should I say, attributes. Each kind of player character has already sets of attributes, but it's obviously not necessarily characteristics, which probably what an AI ML model could potentially do. But it's a lot of processing to make that kind of an actual character's characteristic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the technology as such, but I mean, I just kind of think that there must be a certain tedium of basically having to handcraft some of these things. If you had to kind of handcraft and build the logic for 1,000 events that could happen in game, something like that, right? And based off a model where you're controlling a character and his interaction with another character, even if it's just kind of like a football game, and then can you reduce that tedium on the workload on the developer if you had some sort of AI model? If you had kind of like a model or an understanding of how a human skeleton might work, for instance. You have physics models in there, all interacting with and the AI is just kind of doing stuff to mesh that together. I mean, that's for me, that's quite interesting, right? I mean, whether it's in the realms of science fiction, I don't know. I don't know enough about
I think it's gonna head that way, right? Because I mean, if you look at like Unreal 5, we should probably have a conversation about another time, right? But I don't know if you've seen any of the clips, but what they're doing with the kind of not ray tracing hardware, but the equivalent in software, they're allowing developers to use the same database of assets used in movies. They built software that auto-generates NPC characters, right? That's all of those things are taking a lot of the monotony and load off of developers, and I can see the same thing happening for animations and fluidity of characters in football games or whatever it is, a first-person shooter. You're still going to need the artist to then still create the
yeah, of course.
But there's probably there must be a lot of tedious, monotonous things as part of developing code, and there's just a few people that do the really exciting stuff, right? And I think
the art and everything else, I think,
and it's gonna have to come, because as games get more expensive, all of that stuff is going to have to happen, and I think that's where probably the crossover with like you said, it has to be AI driven. I don't think AI has been properly used, and I think it's got infinite amount of potential, but the use cases haven't driven, and some of the stuff we're talking about now, I think will drive some of that change.
And I think you could do it with a football game. That's quite enclosed with, 11 by 11, players, or you can call it 10 by 10 if you could, just on-field players and stuff like that, right? But I think football is perfectly possible, and it's interesting. And we maybe we could have a separate topic which talks about bots, because AI and bots in certain games, you can tell the difference when it's not well programmed. It actually affects the gameplay how shoddy some AI and how little effort some developers have actually put into their AI. And I'm talking more bots than the kind of AI ML kind of modeling stuff, but actual bots within a game that compete against you, or at least tries to be your NPC, right?
So that's an interesting thing, right? Because AI is such and I'm not an expert, right? But I don't think it's necessarily used in the right way, because people, I'm not saying you guys have on this call, but people could take the intelligence of a NPC in a game and say, "Oh, that's AI." But is that AI? Is it really thinking for itself, or is it just a bunch of a model with branches that a code has created? Because
that's pretty much what it is.
You see what I mean? AI in my head is something that's a bit more dynamic, and it's learning and improving as it goes along. Because the new Halo bots are apparently meant to, when they did a test flight, I don't know, it was a month ago or something, where it was only bots. The bots got smarter every day, and they were starting to mimic the players, even to the point of doing teabagging.
Yeah, and I was going to say also Dota is an interesting one, where actually the bots have been so advanced now, they've come up with new mechanics that players had not even identified. It's got to a point where it's actually insane, there's some of the stuff that they've been doing, but it is through AI, ML, brute forcing patterns. Like it's just over time to be able to create some of these rules and some of the things that they're picking up. But yeah, it's definitely a separate topic. We can't.
Truly is I think we should all do it. I mean, it truly is the undiscovered country, isn't it? Really, and I kind of will say, I mean, no matter what's said and done, we want people to create better games. Games are getting more and more expensive, more and more complex. The scope of games is expanding all the time. Hell, if developers can use this technology, and people say they're cheating, just cheat. But just get out a better game. Everybody's happy. I think it would be interesting. I mean, this is definitely another topic for discussion. We could go way deeper into this, do a bit more research around this. So Jay, thanks for bringing that up. That was an interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah, nice.
With our AMD topic turning into more of a AI, machine learning, future state of gaming kind of topic. Let's move on. Okay, guys. The next topic I want to touch upon is Gamescom 2021. Better online than E3? So, what I basically paid attention to was really the Xbox Gamescom stream, and also the thing that Jeff Keighley kind of hosted.
Yeah, opening night, something. Yeah.
Opening night live or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Opening night live.
Oh no, or something. I think.
But that's really pretty much what I paid attention to. Let's get to the Xbox Gamescom stream. So I think they showed off about 15 games. Dying Light 2, and Dying Light being one of the games I actually haven't played and should play. A parkour style horror game. I think that's one to look out for. We're getting a new Microsoft Flight Simulator update, 7th September. Into the Pit, Age of Empires 4, Wasteland, Cult of the Holy expansion, Sea of Thieves, Borderlands content, so it's more of an expansion, State of Decay 2, Stray Blade, Crusader Kings 3, which is multi-platform, Psychonauts 2, which really did pique my interest. That looked pretty good. The Gunk, coming out in 2021, which is one of the games they showcased in one of the Xbox events just before release, the Xbox release. And again, they showed off a Forza Horizon 5 custom controller. Yeah, from what I could make out. So, you know what? As a Gamescom stream goes, really not that interesting. Yeah, really not that interesting as per me. But Psychonauts 2 and maybe Dying Light 2, probably things I paid most attention to.
It was kind of a bit of a wet fart from from Microsoft.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, wasn't it?
And they've just come off the back of their last one, which was really good. The E3 one, they were firing all cylinders. It was really well paced, good games, and people were very positive. And they've done similar to Gamescom. They've had a couple of wet farts at presentations, right? And it's really weird because they had a number of announcements peppered throughout the couple of days of Gamescom that they didn't put in that showcase, which was really, really strange. With for example, Halo being one of them, and we can get into what that was in a bit. But it was strange.
Yeah, I've got to say why. I mean, obviously we knew Sony wasn't going to turn up, and obviously they didn't, and it doesn't even look like they're going to even do anything because it's Gamescom. Did Nintendo do anything?
I think they had a little bit, but not much. Again, a conversation all the time, but they're in a powerful place, but a strong place. They're also holding their games back for next year when PS5 and Xbox have their big titles. Mario Kart being one of them, right?
Yeah,
and God knows what else they got up their sleeve. But there's probably not much more to say on that Microsoft one. They did say beforehand that they wouldn't be showing any new games, so they set that expectation, and and then that was pretty much it. And I guess in that list of things that you mentioned, the Forza Horizon 5 stuff was quite interesting, and they had almost like another 15-minute gameplay video where they actually showed off some of the starting missions where a couple of vehicles get dropped out of the plane onto the different biomes, and it looks stunning. That game in particular for me is showing gameplay since day one. They've had so many developer deep dives. They're confident about that game, right?
Yeah, they are.
I haven't played many Forzas, and I'm probably someone who likes more the non kind of simulation type racing games. So this really speaks to me, and I've been playing a game on my PS5 called Wreckfest, which is kind of like a modern version of Destruction Derby. It's really, really good, right? And so Forza Horizon 5 really, I'm looking forward to that. I think that I could. I would play that, and I've been hiding the consoles for my kids. I think it's my 3-year-old son. It's probably time for him to have a little go on that as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, definitely Forza Horizon 5 looks like a title to get your hands on. There's not much on the Xbox now that I kind of, and obviously there's all these games coming out, but there's not much on the Xbox right now that makes me feel I want to buy an Xbox.
Yeah.
But that's one of the titles. And you're right, day one gameplay, they are confident about this product.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's impressive.
It looks good. And, the graphics look next gen. Not necessarily the car model, right, because it's an open world. But if you look at the biomes and how they've mapped out all the rocks and water, and as an open world game, racing game. And we know racing games are easier to get better graphics on. It looks pretty damn good. It looks next gen in my eyes, right? If you could drive anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it is cross-gen, but it's like Horizon. Horizon looked awesome. Well, the next Horizon looked awesome, and so did this.
Yeah, well, Forza 4 had already looked really good as well. It's one of those that the game had already looked stunning. So it'd be interesting to see comparisons between 4 and 5, and actually just do some analysis on it to see if there's any huge kind of leaps forwards that they've done. But otherwise, I think Forza 5, Horizon 5 would be a solid game regardless. They've been going down the right track for many years, I think, on Forza.
Yeah. British developer as well. Or British arm of the, I forgot, what are they called? Turn 10 Games or something? No, this is Playground Games, is it?
I think it's Playground.
It's Playground, right? Yeah, not Turn 10, but it's the UK. The other thing is they separated out, but there was like a 5 minutes on Halo, which was off the back of they going into Gamescom. They already announced on a Friday for the weekend that there's going to be no campaign co-op or Forge mode.
It's kind of a big deal for Halo fans because, I mean, those feature sets have a history.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Forge has a history. So, I mean,
I'm nervous about the campaign, I'll be honest, because
they haven't shown anything.
They showed it last year, and we were watching it together, right? And it was a bit, instantly, and I think you guys think it doesn't look next gen, right? And prior to that, they had a number of long-term senior 343 industries leaders leave, which looks concerning. Then they had that flop with the campaign, right? And they haven't shown any so far. Multiplayer-wise, they've kicked it out of the park. They've done a good showcase at E3 as part of the conference. They've recently done the closed alpha or beta, whatever it was called. Everyone's raving about it, saying it feels like Halo 3 PvP days, looking really sharp, modernised with a bit of Call of Duty pace, but with the time to kill being in line with kind of a Halo Destiny type. But yeah, not to have campaign co-op, which I'm not that bothered about. It's only coming 3 months down the line. It's not like it's coming 6 months or they don't know.
Yeah.
And then the Forge piece, again, 6 months down the line. But I suspect, and I've heard elsewhere, I've read this actually and heard this, that because it's a live service game, rather than we just consume the content at the start, they probably purposely spread it out. But
roadmap. It's their roadmap.
Exactly. 100%. It sounds like a roadmap. But the other thing I was going to mention is that as part of that 5 minutes showcase within Gamescom, but not part of the main Xbox segment, they announced campaign and PvP, which is free. It's definitely coming this year, and it's releasing on the 8th of December. Yep. Which is good.
But that could be a reason why we're not seeing co-op, and a reason why we're not seeing kind of Forge, because they've got to pool their resources to hitting a date this year. So they've got to slim down the overall package for now, anyway.
The focus, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of, I mean, the only thing that really concerns me is that they have not shown the campaign in any shape or form since last year. And maybe they got, they want to get it looking stellar and as good as they can make it look before they show it to the world, because they can't get it wrong for a second time. Just from the campaign perspective, we've heard really great things about multiplayer, so that's a little bit worrying because we're August now. The release is happening in December, but yet we've not seen anything, which is it's unusual. It's unusual. I do hope they do knock it out of the pot, though. I mean, I've got to say, because that this is a reason for me to get an Xbox. I mean, even when I saw it, the campaign trailer from last year, ultimately, Halo's music kicks off, and I feel myself being pulled in, and I remember all those good times with Halo 1 to 3. Yeah, and I think, yeah, right? But then, obviously, the negativity starts kicking in, and You kind of look at it through a different lens, and you think, oh, well, maybe not.
They've confirmed 4-player split screen multiplayer coming at launch. I remember those days were amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It was amazing. You know, what I mean, that's what you want to hear.
Exactly, and from the closed alpha beta, whatever it was called, I think they called it a technical test. People are raving about the music, saying it's amazing, and there's people put clips on YouTube where they've just an hour of the title screen music just playing, saying they're just you know.
Damn, if they were to get the music wrong in this game, I don't know what I would say about that. It's just it's kind of like Kojima getting the music wrong in Metal Gear. Yeah. It's kind of like Uncharted not having that theme that we all know. You know what I mean? It's just you can't get that wrong.
You can't get it wrong. Yeah. There's been a bunch of leaks, haven't they? Apparently the campaign story's already leaked.
I haven't paid any attention to it. Really.
So I've not purposely stayed away from the leaks, but I do know they exist, and the number of them, some of the maps and the weapons have kind of leaked. Apparently, it's about 35 odd weapons they've brought
for multiplayer.
I think across the whole game. I think
that's interesting.
So they've brought lots of the weapons across all the different Halos.
Wow.
Back, and they've got quite a few new ones, and
they're almost paying homage to this. I hope they are. I hope they just like play some homage to it, and give the fans what they want. That'd be really exciting.
I'm excited. I'm worried about the campaign. I'm excited about the multiplayer, and for me, worst case, I'll just play the multiplayer for however long it lasts. They're planning 10 years. I can't sit lost in that long, but
yeah.
I mean, if they are going to go, for a service orientated or game as a platform, I would want to understand how Halo is going to translate to that. Because Halo's, for as long as I can remember anyway, it's always been about that campaign and then solid but traditional multiplayer. So I kind of want to understand how this would translate. My memories of Halo, I mean, that's about the only game that I recall that I've ever played, and this is the second one, where I got, and this is when, you would have to wait days or weeks for the game to come through the post.
Yeah.
Got Halo 2 through the post. I must have been in my pajamas. This was early in the morning. Put it into the Xbox, the OG Xbox, yeah. Obviously, start playing, control in hand. Couple of mates that were living with me at the time kind of like came in, what are you doing? I'm playing Halo 2, just got it. Early in the morning, say goodbye, they went out for the whole day. They come back, this must have been about 8 o'clock at night. I'm still there in my pyjamas, I haven't left the sofa, I'm still playing Halo 2, close to finishing it. Whatnot. And that's the only game that I've ever done that with, so those are,
You want it to be good like everybody else, and
I'm rooting for them to really kind of turn it around, and go back to the old days of Halo. That's what I really want.
So one thing I would say, having played Splitgate recently, I didn't realise how much I missed the whole arena type shooter.
Yeah, I've heard people say that.
That's been, at least in my eyes, dead for a while, right? Call of Duty changed everything, and all the other games have kind of gone that way. Oddball. Shotguns and snipers, King of the Hill, they're tried and tested game modes that just work.
Yeah.
And all the other games they've tried, including Destiny, try to innovate with other variants of that or try new things. They just don't work as well as those. The Halo's got Halo. I think has got a space it can come back into and own it. They just need to. They just need to make the initial landing good, because I think Xbox is.
I think the Xbox needs it.
It does. It really does. Yeah. They've done everything right in terms of barriers to entry, free multiplayer. You can get Game Pass free for a month, and the money you would pay for Halo, you could get 6 months of Game Pass for that.
Yeah, correct.
If you pay Forza, you get a year's worth of Game Pass. They're going to have all their games out next year, including Starfield and God knows what else are releasing. You know, it's you just have to get the game right. They really have to do it.
You would kind of almost think that's the easiest thing in the world, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Look, the Xbox Series X and S are gonna do well, regardless.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, if Xbox ever had a mascot, this is it. If there's any kind of IP you want to pay kind of some respect to, this is it, right? And the reality is, I mean, and you know, to be honest, the PS5 falls into this position, but maybe to a lesser extent. There's not a great deal of content on the Xbox at the moment where you say, this is only on Xbox, if you know what I mean. This is why you would buy an Xbox. Yeah, right now you buy an Xbox because, you know, Game Pass gives you so much. I just kind of think, you can't possibly get this wrong. You can't get this wrong.
They can't.
Yeah.
Like I said, I bought a PS5 and Xbox Series X in the space of 1 week.
Yeah.
Other than trying Warzone on my Xbox, it's now going to sit there for 6 months, or less than 6 months, until December before I actually even use it. I'm going to have to turn it on because of its design. The dust goes straight into the top, goes straight into it. So I'm sure it'll get blown out because it's got a huge fan facing upwards. But
I definitely put something on top of it whilst you're not using it.
That would probably be a thing. Definitely.
I think it's probably a good call. Yeah, but yeah, I desperately want them not to F it up.
I mean, I think I'm just going to get Game Pass whenever it's due, whenever it's out. I'm interested to see how it's going to port actually to PC, because I remember my kind of Halo journey was actually started on the PC from it, so I didn't ever actually play it on the Xbox originally. So
right.
I'm actually interested in what the sort of keyboard and mouse port is going to be like, and see how that's going to be.
Yeah, like I said, like all first-person shooters on consoles before Halo came along weren't good. They just were not good. And Halo kind of changed all of that. You can have a good first-person shooter on consoles. Not only can it be good, but it can be amazing. So, you know.
I would actually go as far as saying that I personally don't like the feel of a mouse and keyboard compared to a controller. When you add the immersion of rumble in there, I just think it with a tight. And I know you can plug the controller into the PC now, so it is slightly different. But I just ease of use, access, friends being on there, less sweaty compared to PC, less cheating going on as well. Well, all that's changing. For me, just like you said, I've got that heritage of playing that type of game, and I look forward to that path going forward. I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Halo made kind of first-person shooters on consoles viable.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it comes down to.
Yeah,
and we really got to stop the Halo love, you know, because it's turning into just about Halo, which I love. But so let's just move on in terms of Gamescom. I mean, so look, I think we agreed Xbox's Gamescom stream was a bit lukewarm, you know, nothing to be excited about. Certainly didn't continue on the trend from the E3 stream, which I think they kind of did extremely well. Getting on to what was for me the main meat of Gamescom content was this ONL, you know, opening night live with Jeff Keighley. Love him or hate him, you know, he's kind of a video games kind of figurehead now, ambassador. Yeah, I think that's a good word to give old kind of like Jeff. You know, he's an ambassador. And to be honest, looking at my list of games that I kind of saw in, you know, ONL, quite substantial. I mean, it looks to be about 30 games here. But, you know, I'll just kind of go from top to bottom, and let's just kind of pick out really what I think were some of the more noteworthy games, and maybe kind of talk around them. The first thing we saw really was a return of Saints Row. And it looks a little bit like a reboot.
It is a reboot, yeah. It's a
CGI trailer, it was. But there was some gameplay actually shown off. Yeah, there was some gameplay shown off, I think. I think somewhere, I can't remember what happened. I think it might have been somewhere. I think they showed a CGI trailer and then like it might have been some sort of interview with the dev, and then a little bit of gameplay. I think is what we saw. But coming out next year,
Right.
25th of Feb 2022. Looks interesting. It's got a little bit of a kind of Fortnite vibe in the way, you know, it looks visually. It's not quite 100% that, but it's got an element of that. That may not appeal to everybody. The next thing they showed was Marvel's Midnight Suns. It's, again, an announcement trailer. Now, this is a real Marvel comic IP. Deals more with this with the supernatural. Let's put it that way. Okay. But where this was noteworthy for me was that it's been done by Fire Access of XCOM fame. It's a turn-based game, actually, this. And again, coming out in March 2022. You know, Fire Access typically knock their games out of the park, to be honest. XCOM, the new XCOMs have got an amazing rep. Yeah, amazing rep on PC. They followed that up with quite a lengthy Call of Duty Vanguard campaign gameplay with kind of a female protagonist, with, you know, the actress on stage talking about it as well, which kind of feels like a real kind of trend for anything that Jeff Keighley does now. He tends to gets the talent on stage, and not only the developers, but voice actors and actors and actresses now, you know, as part of the actual, you know, interview, you know, process and whatnot. Guys, I don't know what you feel about Call of Duty Vanguard. I kind of wasn't overly impressed with it. I just thought, yeah, okay, it's another Call of Duty with a World War II setting, and I wasn't really that kind of impressed with it, to be honest. It was kind of middle of the road for me.
So I this weekend gone played one of their betas, but it was for a new game mode. Is it the Goulash? You know, when you die in Warzone, you go into that Gulag. Sorry, Gulag.
Yeah.
It's kind of a map with lots of those. You split into 2 versus 2, but with a kind of ranked. So you quit games and you get ranked, right? I forgot what the game mode was, but the performance was really bad. But I got a feel of the gunplay and etc. And I have to say, Call of Duty, the last, not Warzone, because it feels a bit different to the actual single player and the PvP as part of the main package, but the last year or two, I feel the gunplay's got really good. It's got that Destiny micro animations of the guns. You kind of feel the weight that the guns have more character. I think that's done quite well on that side. But for the Vanguard, they had a gameplay about 15 minutes of the single player campaign. It looked quite good visually, and there's not many games that have with that good gun mechanic feel a good campaign. And I don't mind the World War II settings. I'm probably a bit more interested than I've normally been, but I can really get what you're saying, Joe. Is Activision and Call of Duty rinse their game so much.
Rinse is the right word for it.
Absolutely rinse the. But they're all their game studios are on a 3-year cycle, aren't they? So they are producing quality, but whether you like it or not, it's the same fingerprint of games, right? And I may give it a go, but I'm not paying full price.
Yeah, they've more or less got a factory for it, haven't they? Really, when it's all said and done. Activision.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that Vanguard looks like it's the developers, it's the different set of developers, the Black Ops kind of side of things. So the feel in the game engine is probably going to be very different from that of Warzone. Warzone was Infinity Ward.
This is Treyarch and
yeah, exactly.
I hear Treyarch are doing the zombies mode for it though. They've actually split that one off. So Treyarch are doing the zombies mode, and obviously this other developers basically doing the main meat of the game.
So they've got a couple of sub-studios as well. Some of them used to work on Destiny. There's a studio called High Moon Studios that helped Destiny with
I heard them
with one of their expansions. They've got Raven, which they used to work on the old Rainbow Six games back in the day, which were really, really good. It's not quite the same game anymore, but I don't know. I wish all those studios just worked on a new IP, because they're good. They are good, right? I mean, it's just restrictive to that kind of
it makes the
Yeah,
money.
that's the problem. Yeah.
It brings in the
That's the
dollars.
problem.
You know, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know how much the CEO of that company makes, right?
150 million or something crazy like that.
It's something silly, yeah, some crazy figure. Yeah, it's so they're basically, you know, have cow will milk it.
Yeah.
Is the
But you know
mantra.
what they are, because they used to have like Bungie under that, didn't they? So what they got left, they've got Call of Duty. Are they got other games under their banner? They've got what?
Blizzard.
Oh, Blizzard as well. Okay, yeah, but that's
Yeah.
okay. But under that, yeah, okay. Does Tony Hawk and all those kind of games? Is that still active?
Potentially, I think it still might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, Call of Duty is such a money maker. I mean, when it's all said and done, it's just, do they need much more? You know, they've got Blizzard, they've got Call of Duty. It's just,
Yeah, that's true.
you know,
I'm just surprised people are still playing it.
Yeah,
I've not played a Call of Duty
yeah, it's still
game
going
for-
strong.
But
Yeah,
if-
it's still going.
So imagine you're in your early teens into your 20s, right? When you've got fast reflexes, it must feel good to play that type of game, right? It's us at older where we need time to think about what the enemy walking around the corner and what they may do, and then react to that. That's why we like Halo and Destiny.
You know, we'd like to interview you and get to know you before we
Yeah,
shoot you.
exactly. Yeah.
The games
Hold
are the
on
same.
there.
The games are the same though. I think it's like I've not played a Call of Duty for a good 12 years. I think I've played Battlefield more than I've played Call of Duty.
It's insta
And I
kill.
come from the
It's insta kill.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, sorry to cut across you, Al, but it's insta kill.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like it's only, but that's probably how it should feel like if it was. I don't know. You know, it's a couple of bullets and you're kind of down.
Yeah.
It's rather than a sponge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
overshield, yeah, like you get in other games, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys, sorry, Joe, I know you're going to go through other games. Have you guys got any thoughts on, is it Eden Ring, is it called?
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring, and there's
Yeah, from
Software, and there's Deathloop as well, which I thought was from Arcane, which looks quite interesting.
Yeah, I think people have been kind of really looking forward, and certainly for more information about Elden Ring. And I think now that Gamescom has obviously happened, they're getting a lot more information. What I understand about Elden Ring, it's going to be basically very From Software like, so you know, Demon Souls in the like. That's won't be a surprise, I think. But I kind of saw one kind of headline saying that it was going to be very much like Breath of the Wild as well, you know, with some elements of that. That'll be interesting, but I don't know too much about it. I haven't been following it in any kind of detail. On Deathloop, there's a lot of people really, really looking forward to that. And it's an Arcane game. Arcane have got a really great rep. I've said this before. They're probably one of the jewels in this kind of Microsoft acquisition.
Yeah, underrated, I think.
Of ZeniMax. Yeah, and personally, I'm not that excited about it. But I think for me, it's just the setting, and it's just the look of the game. If it had a bigger kind of fantasy or sci-fi art direction to it, I'd probably be a bit more invested in.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't like that. I don't know what to call it, but kind of post-apocalyptic, but stuck in a time warp from the 1960s type.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm not a fan of like Fallout, those type of game. It's the setting. You're right. It's the same for me. I don't particularly like it, but I this has made me more interested in what the other games that Arcane have got out from the past, which I haven't played. Dishonored exactly has been an example. And I want to go back and play these games, but I'll play when I get the Game Pass. I'll go back and play those.
Yeah, Dishonored is excellent. You know, you got to jump into that if you haven't. You know, it just feels. I mean, a lot of the games just feel extremely deep from a gameplay perspective. I mean, that's what I would say about Arcane. But yeah, I mean, look, it's, you know, Deathloop is going to be one of the few basically exclusives for PlayStation 5 when it comes out. So, you know, there's going to be people kind of like thirsting for it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But it's owned by Microsoft.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, you know, MLB was basically developed by Sony.
Yeah.
Confusing landscape at the moment. But moving on to what we had in ONL. Halo we've talked about, comes out 8th of December, multiplayer and campaign. Cult of the Lamb from the people who gave us Hotline Miami looked interesting. Had a very kind of indie look to it. I think one game that really stuck out was this thing called Midnight Fight Express. So it's, in my view, it's kind of an overhead, very kind of stylistic beat 'em up, like the old school kind of Double Dragon and Final Fight style games. Obviously had a bit more to it, but I think the thing that got me interested is that it's been done by one developer in Poland. One developer. And you know what, if this is the work of one developer, you know, it looks super stellar. There's also a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. And for, you know, obviously for the guys who kind of like been gaming as long as I have, that, you know, that's a nice, you know, blast from the past. Super Monkey Ball makes a comeback. Splitgate you talked about, which is a free to play.
Yeah.
So they've got some sort of season 0 thing kicking off. I'm not really sure what that's about. But as you said, it's an FPS with portals, as much as I can understand it. Riders of the Republic also kind of looks quite interesting. And I think we know that Ubisoft have been trying to get into kind of services. Yeah, I think they want to get more and more into that. And this thing is out and out gaming as a service, gaming as a platform. But what the vibe I got from this, I don't know if you guys remember the...
I've played it.
Have you?
Yeah, because the beta was out last weekend. I signed up to it because I love extreme sports.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't like the beta, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why in a second, but it's been raved about by quite a few people. Even Skill Up was saying it was really good, being one of the folks that we mentioned earlier. But frame rate is terrible. It's got the same problems Steep has got, because it's built on the same kind of same engine or whatever you want to call it. Because it's basically clunky animations. It's a classic Ubisoft game where it's got really good elements, like you start off by doing the BMX, right, first person view, and some of it feels good, but then it's got clunky bits in it, clunky animations, and it's clunky when you're in the base world, and the frame rate's a bit all over the place. And I've tried the BMX mountain bike, sorry. Then I've tried then it moves you on to doing the kind of jetpack. That frame rate was okay in that, and then I went to the snowboarding, and I love snowboarding, right? And that just felt off.
Really?
Yeah, and so I basically just deleted it off. I thought I'm not wasting my
you
time.
think some of this stuff is fixable? Is it fixable, or is it just gone too far now and this is the way?
I don't think it's not good enough for me, because they had NPCs just moving around on the map, right? And it was. I mean, I played it on the PS5, right? It looks gorgeous in some aspects, and then doesn't look.
Yeah.
And that's for me. That's Ubisoft have always been like that. This is, I don't know whether they call it. I don't know. I have to describe it right without saying something that's going to annoy people or offend. But
half baked or something.
Yeah, there's always like a little bit half baked in terms of graphics, and some of it looked next gen, some of it looked didn't. And frame rate, I've always found with Ubisoft games are not great. I mean, there's what's that other game that you like, Alex?
Division.
Division, that runs well, but I don't know, Ubisoft for me, I've just never liked them as a studio. And anyway, that game, I just to summarise what I was saying, I was not impressed with that.
That's a shame, I mean, because I like you, I've heard good things about it. Obviously, I hadn't touched the beta or anything like that. For me, I just kind of like, I don't know if you guys, do you remember SSX?
Yeah, I love that game.
Yeah, exactly. What a game, right?
And MotorStorm. We ever played MotorStorm on the original.
MotorStorm. Yeah.
That type of game, SSX. I thought this will fill that void.
Yeah,
for
that's
me,
exactly what I'm saying. That's what I hoped it would be.
But for me, it just didn't. It wasn't cohesive enough.
Oh man.
Because Steep with the snowboarding open world game, same sort of model as this, right? Seemed like it was good, but it suffered from frame rate, and I thought the PS5 it would just everything be smooth, but it wasn't. And so anyway, that's yeah. I
Okay.
Give it a go when it comes out, but I wouldn't get too excited.
Yeah.
It's a bit disappointing.
No SSX fix for me here.
No.
Okay. So moving on. Century Age of Ashes. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is coming out on the 18th of November. It's free to play, but I always wanted another Panzer Dragoon game, and I think maybe this is it. Not sure. There's also actually another free to play online football simulator called UFL, a la PES. Yeah. There was just a guy who just had a couple of sentences. That's it.
So that's the football game I said they spent 5 years developing.
Apparently, yeah. But you have nothing to show.
Nothing to show, yeah.
Which is kind of worrying. A new Lego Star Wars is really not that surprising. It's the complete, Skywalker saga. So across all 9 movies, comes out, I think, quite soon. No, it must be 2022. Synced Off Planet, not that interesting. Action game where you fight against nanobots. Outlast Trails in 2022. Now, there's one game that did actually look quite interesting. I think it's called Dokev. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but it's a Pokemon style game, but it had this very, very distinctive look to it. And the only way I can really explain it is that the look of it is just anime. It's just anime. But equally, it had some sort of photorealistic thing to it. And the only way I can really describe it is Mario Odyssey. If you guys remember how that looked when it came out. It was Mario, but then in some of the kind of levels, it looks quite realistic, if you know what I mean. So almost very un-Mario-like. And this thing has a very just distinctive look to it. This is why I kind of bring it up. Moving on, Jurassic Park World Evolution 2, coming out in November 9th, Far Cry 6, October 7th, Vampire the Masquerade, September 7th. And this doesn't sound great, but it's a battle royale with vampires. Vampires. Park Beyond is some sort of strategy and management construction sim. Think of it as like theme park. The old kind of theme park game that who was it? Bullfrog did back in the day. Jet, that we've seen during the PlayStation announcement and kind of build up, coming out on October 5th. Horizon Forbidden West finally got a release date, 18th February 2022, so obviously we know it's been delayed, and we've spoken at length on that. New World comes out 9th to the 12th, or I should say the open beta starts September 9th to 12th. It's the MMO, PC MMO, that Amazon are bringing out. Is this the one that kind of bricked a lot of kind of graphics cards?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, this was the, apparently the 3090 sprite.
Yeah. Jumanji's The Curse Returns, and then a very odd announcement, and I don't know how I'm going to describe this, but some sort of persistent fan hub in concert space that sits within this custom game sharing platform called Core. And it just reminded me, the way they described it just reminded me of PS Home, if you guys remember that.
Yeah, I used to.
Fall Guys, more content coming out for that. Replaced on Xbox and Games Pass, which I've said in the past looks, for me, super, super interesting. Yeah, super interesting. Really clever pixel art visuals is the way I would describe it. And from the trailers I've seen of it and the gameplay I've seen of it, actually quite violent. Then there was Age of Empires 4, which, if I'm being honest, didn't really do anything for me at all, right? But there's the but part. It's by Relic, who are one of my favourite RTS developers who did the Dawn of War series, Company of Heroes. You guys are into that sort of thing?
Yeah, I haven't played it very much. Yeah.
So they're not dead, which is good. All right.
It just depends if all of them are still there. Actually,
that is the truth of the matter. Valheim, Hearth and Home, which is some sort of survival sandbox experience, and apparently this is doing extremely well on Steam.
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit of that on Twitch, And it's just not to go off on too long, right? But it's one of those games where they've just built the MVP and it's done well, and they've added loads of content really quickly, and it's stuck. And I think some games should do more of that, but do it right. not it should be MVP free. Then add, but that's quite cool.
Agreed. Genshin Impact Alloy's made its way into that game now, so there was a trailer for that. Sifu has a release date. I think it's coming out in 2022. And then I think they rounded it off with, I think it was a preview video of Death Stranding Director's Cut, which is coming out on September 24th.
That looks good. Have you guys played that? The original game?
I've been holding off on Death Stranding, and I'll probably now get this Director's Cut.
Yeah, I will do. I probably will wait until either Christmas or next year for a discount, but I definitely want to play it. They've added some really quirky things like racing in there, and
it's unusual stuff. I mean, I was telling Al, because the first time I set eyes on this Director's Cut, right, it just reminded me of Metal Gear 2 Substance, I can't remember, but that was an Xbox version of Metal Gear 2.
Yeah.
It also made its way to kind of PlayStation. And it had all these bolt-ons, like you're saying. It had actually a skate park. So you could actually have Snake skateboarding. So it just reminded me of that. But yeah, that's pretty much the list of games that was showed off on ONL. And I think, there's certainly some notable things there. But Gamescom, it being just about the streaming, ultimately it wasn't that exciting. It was kind of like E3. Yeah, but all I can say about this is at least they basically had quite a few games here.
It's a growing platform, that's how I see it, and it's moving in the right direction, and I quite like the fact that it's giving a bit of a European presence, and for us, we talked about hopefully going 1 year for you to go there, that they've got more exclusive announcements that are coming to that versus just being a bit of a joke or a dumping ground for games. I think there's space for it to really own that part of the year in terms of announcements and it being a focal point. So I think it's trending the right way.
I think I would agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of let's say big events that are. I mean, my point is I'm not a huge fan of these big events like E3 and Gamescom, whatever else, being kind of just about streaming and being online. I think there's a lot of value in going to these obviously things in person. There's a lot more excitement. Yeah, I think I also wonder if Jeff Keighley's getting a little bit more cooperation from Gamescom than he did for E3, because kind of I walked away from this stream thinking, wow, he's got a lot of stuff in here, and I don't recall even the Game Awards being like this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's his main bread and butter. So that was quite interesting. The one thing I really didn't like about the stream is just this whole game of the show type of award thing they were doing. And I think this time it was even more throwaway because, well, there's not really a physical show, so you can't really gauge how the fans and the general public are receiving some of these games. You got nothing to base it on, so what are you basing this on? And other than a list of kind of games that haven't come out that you kind of randomly pick and say this looks good.
I would like to pick this up on one of our shows, which is about games being shown too early. But just for now, I just wanted to say that Gamescom is filling that void, or let's say putting the pressure on E3 to be more digital and filling a bit of a gap in that calendar year. And I completely agree with you. I still prefer physical things and going and seeing and playing demos with what you call Cyberpunk and lots of games in the last probably 5 years just flunking on release, under delivering, half baked. It's just a big problem, and part of that problem is also making announcements too early. And this thing that you're talking about, which is giving awards for, it doesn't work for me. And I think, we'll save it for another time. But I really would like to explore where where those pressures are going to change how developers announce games, the news cycle, and how that may impact the shows and how they connect with the consumer. I think that's all very interesting.
Yeah, and it's you know, you don't want it to turn into a culture where it's more important to hit a date than to kind of really focus on the quality of the product. You know, that's the thing. It's like a checkpoint almost, just to say you've hit your kind of like your mark.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, well, let's try not to go into it too much, but you know, consumers will just vote with their wallet eventually.
But I do
See,
wonder.
that's where I disagree. In theory, that sounds right, but I think we don't know as a community. We don't. We do on this call, but the community doesn't. They buy.
I think people learn.
I'm not sure they're learning quickly enough.
Yeah, I don't think I would say. I mean, this is going to sound kind of ageist, wherever, but the youngsters that don't. In the same way, when we were in our 20s, we had the generation before saying, you know, you guys are just off the rails compared to how we were, and we did X, Y, and Z. We're in that same position now when we're looking at the next generation, thinking you guys are completely off the rails.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
and this is one of those topics where they'll just keep throwing money at Call of Duty, even though it's the same stuff packaged again or whatever.
But it's not only games software, guys. You know, you see it in the hardware level as well. I mean, you know, these GPUs and CPUs were so expensive, but yet they're still selling out. Yeah, so it's like, are we really voting with our wallets here?
Yeah.
Or are we just victims of marketing and whatever else? You know, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It is definitely a subject that we've got to kind of dive into, because it's, you know, it's a software and a hardware topic in my view anyway.
Yeah.
But guys, look, that was the list of games that we, you know, obviously saw in ONL. To Jay's point, yeah, we do need a European presence, no doubt about that. And you know what? We probably do need competing shows or conventions or whatnot. Yeah, to basically go up against the E3s of the world, if you want to call it that. You know, we need more. We need more of this. We need festivals for gamers, which I think Gamescom do a bit more of than, you know, E3. We want all that good stuff. We can do away with the kind of Game of the Show awards completely, if possible. You know what I mean? But, you know, was Gamescom better than E3 online? Yeah, I think for me marginally. You know, and I'm just kind of going back to kind of what I saw in Jeff Keighley's kind of stream. You know, obviously for E3 we had much better representation from the platform holders like Microsoft and Nintendo. Yeah, but that's my view of things anyway.
The only difference I would say to you, what you've just said, is I still preferred E3 news cycle compared to Gamescom, but you know, Gamescom's moving in the right direction, so
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
LJ, it's come to that time of the show where we actually got to, you know, say our goodbyes as per usual. This is our 7th Neutral Lounge. Amazing, we've made it this far. And what I'll do is, to conclude, I'll kind of ask the usual question I ask every podcast. And obviously, Al, I'm going to start with you. So what tech or game-related things have you been doing of late?
I'm going to rattle through these as quick as I can, but still on Genshin Impact. I think I mentioned last time, Punishing Gray.
Yeah,
I mentioned it.
Still playing that?
Still playing that. It's been good fun. A bit more competitive than that of Genshin Impact. Games-wise, I haven't really been doing that much. A bit of Dota 2 again. In terms of tech, I've bought some thermal pads and some thermal paste. I want to do some stuff on my GPU, so I'll probably next weekend I'll probably do something with that just to improve.
You're repasting the thing and whatnot, or?
Yeah, so I'm going to probably put some thermal pads around the back and then around the front, and then re-thermal paste.
Very, very geeky, significantly geeky. Well done.
Cool. And I'll pass on to Jay. I think the same question. What have you been up to on games and tech?
Yeah, I as I mentioned, I recently got a PS5, Xbox Series X. I've been set them up alongside like a whole bunch of new peripherals. I've got a new headset I'm using now. On the PS5, I've been playing some games I've had in my catalogue I haven't got to, Wreckfest being one of them. Been messing about with Splitgate quite a bit because I'm feeling the Halo vibes, which has been pretty good. In between that, I've played a couple of demos when I can. I've mentioned I've played the Call of Duty Vanguard mode demo, which is like I played the Riders Republic one, which I'm not that impressed with. Xbox wise, just messed around with the menu, got that set up, tried Warzone on it, and then I just turned it off. And what else have I done? Then I've on the PS5, I've basically downloaded a couple of games that come free with PlayStation Plus. I've got Control on there, which I'm going to get to. I've got Days Gone, which is probably further back in the catalogue. I've gone back to Horizon Dawn because I've got a 60 FPS patch. That's the game I'm going to complete first. And then in the PlayStation sale recently, I bought The Last of Us 2 and Jedi Fallen Order, which I've been meaning to play. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm just looking forward to hopefully another Halo Infinite technical test or alpha or beta, whatever's coming next. Be part of that so I can use my Xbox Series X. And that's it. And listening to news, what's going on. It's just an interesting time of the year.
Oh, I just remembered something, Joe. I played the Back 4 Blood beta.
I played that too.
Any good?
It's really good fun. Really good fun. Needs a bit more balancing, but really good.
Yeah, I played that. When you load into the game, you can go into an area where you can trial the guns that's lying on the tables, and they've really nailed the feel of the guns, particularly with the PS5. The adaptive triggers work with those.
Yeah.
Which again, we'll have a conversation on another podcast about what I think about adaptive triggers, but and the actual game mode seems like it's going to be quite replayable. The zones have lots of rooms and it's quite hard. You have to work as a group. I got destroyed after I got past the first section. It's got some depth to it, I'd say, replayability. The only issue I have is whether I know enough people who are going to buy the game to play. But it's free with Game Pass, I think. So
is it a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead or something?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much.
Right,
pretty
okay.
much. I mean, most of the zombie enemies have names that've changed, but a lot of them are quite similar in some of the styling, at least. But it's good. It's varied enough anyway.
Graphics were pretty good as well.
Cool. Oh, I guess it's my goal, right? To tell you
Yeah.
what. Sorry, I was just like deep thought there about it. I've had a fairly dry month, I would say, because kind of inserting a little bit of information for kind of purely boredom. Yeah, I've had my kind of kitchen redone, and it's been a bloody nightmare. That's all I could say about that. But now things are normalising a bit. It's for game wise, I've actually secured myself a version of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So I'm starting that, and it's I'd actually got it for a reasonably good price. It was kind of, I think, £45. Brand new.
PS5.
Yeah.
So
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I had a little play around with it earlier on, and I gotta say, it bloody looks impressive. It is the shit. I've been waiting and looking for something that I thought, and to be honest, Demon Souls, you could argue that game also, right? But that really impresses. But I think Ratchet might kind of impress on all fronts. Yeah, so so far so good. I've also got Last of Us 2. I think that thing's been patched to 60 frames per second.
Yeah. Well, it's a piece of it's a PS4 patch to 60, not a PS5 patch. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I might kind of like get started on that at some point. I just whatever my time permits. And like yourself, Jay, you said, obviously the 60 FPS patch came out for Horizon, and I started it and then I put it down, so I'll probably have to go back to it. And before this whole month kicked off, I actually finished the story mode on kind of God of War. Kind of put that aside now, obviously. That's mostly on the PS5. On the PC, yeah, I don't know where to begin. I've built myself another kind of large back catalogue games I'll probably never play. But I mean, I think my strategy is just to pick something, and that something is going to be Hades. I want to invest a bit more time into that.
That's on my hit list as well. That's very good, yeah.
Yeah, I started it, but I never got very far of it, so that's my plan. In terms of general tech, I just need to get back into kind of getting my cloud certifications, because I had a whole plan around that. Done 1 out of the 3 that I had planned this year, so I've got to get cracking on that. Yeah, that's it. And obviously, I'm gonna have to edit this podcast to hell now. It's been such a long one. You know what I mean?
It's a bumper one.
Yeah, it definitely is a bumper one. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna require a bit of effort, but yeah. So it's all of that sort of stuff.
I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah. I'm gonna be half a man after it's all done. And guys, with that all said and done, and I think it's time for our goodbyes. So it's goodbye from me, Joe.
Yeah, goodbye from me, Al.
And goodbye from me, Jay.
And wherever you may be, please like and subscribe, support our channel, support the podcast, and whatever you're doing, have a stellar day.